can and whether you want to are two totally different things.
Do this. Is the gain okay on this? Because that's way...
Yeah, just,
It's
you gotta
Okay,
look at the levels.
All right.
Is it like maxed out?
Yeah, it's cranked all the way.
Okay.
To 11.
That entire time we were not streaming. Oops.
So nobody
Now,
out there heard anything?
We are in fact streaming now, ladies and gentlemen.
We were just prattling away.
We were prattling away. Hello, they see people now. Welcome, everybody. I see 57 Strudel. I see Jaren. I see Kat. I see Wolf Shield Roleplays. I see Mike.
After all those...
I see
Mike.
Zephyr. I see Jacob. I see EJ Lowell. Of the Lowell clan.
Mike is a man who owns his identity.
Yes,
Doesn't
exactly.
need to hide.
Mike.
Those who call him...
Mike.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are just getting started here. We got a lot to cover tonight. And among the things that we're going to do tonight is we're going to be recording some mid-roll content and some outro content. Basically, what you're watching here is the creation of a podcast live. So, pardon all the dust as we do this. But we're going to be recording these mid-rolls and outros tonight. We're each going to take a part, and then we'll have these archived, and we'll be using them over and over in production. So we'll do this tonight, and we won't need to do it after this episode. So give us some feedback and let us know that you can hear us and see us okay. Thank you. I see people's welcome. Welcome.
Welcome
Okay.
one, welcome all.
Okay, so
Except that other person over there.
we are recording. We are, in fact, streaming. And we've been doing so for 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Excellent.
Are you ready to do some mid-rolls, fellas?
Let's do it.
All right.
It's just before the holidays. You don't need to be talking about my mid-roll.
How about the end roll? What's that?
After the spare tire in the springtime comes spring rolls.
Spring rolls. All right, everybody's hearing us loud and clear. Okay.
Excellent.
I will be recording the first mid-roll, which is a message from our sponsor. Are we ready?
Yes, may I turn my volumes down so that they are not interrupting your
Yes,
recording
do so.
awesomeness.
Do so.
All right.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Lost Barrow Brewing Company, maker of Draugr Lager and other middling quality spirits. Made with ancient ingredients of mysterious origin, Lost Barrow brews capture the taste of history in every bottle. Your taste buds will dance to the subtle flavors of iron, granite, charred siege engines, and petrified flesh. We are proud to offer listeners of Character Crusade podcast this exciting exclusive offer. 1,000% off a keg of Draugr Lager when you go to lostbarrow.charactercrusade.com and enter the promo code DEADBEVERAGE. You have to be dead from the neck up not to take advantage of this offer. Draugr Lager, the great taste of the undead with no bitter afterlife. My mid-roll is complete.
Nice.
Excellent.
Let the competition begin.
All right. Joe is next.
All right, I know I'm going to be third out of 3, but...
You're fine.
Looking for more great Skyrim stories and inspiration? If so, the creators of the Character Crusade podcast have channels you might like. Visit The Panicked Monk at tpm.charactercrusade.com and Couch Warrior TV at cwtv.charactercrusade.com for more amazing Skyrim and roleplay content.
Check.
Excellent.
Nice.
Number 3. Number 3.
Okay.
Number 3. Oh, sorry.
Have at.
Are you ready, Stu?
Yes, I am ready.
Looking to get the most out of your Unbound experience? Do your homework. We know what you're thinking. Homework? This is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Why the hell would I do homework? Studies have shown that every minute invested in recording your roleplay ideas and experiences equals 10 hours of mind-blowing amazeballs in-game memories. This is a proven scientific fact. But if the science is not enough to convince you, we are giving away free Character Crusade loot to sweeten the deal. If you submit at least one episode of Unbound homework, you will be entered into a drawing to win a free t-shirt from the Character Crusade shop. At the end of the season, the Character Crusade team will draw one lucky...
The lucky winners.
At the end of the season, the Character Crusade team will draw one lucky winner and send them the t-shirt of their choice from our extensive selection of custom gear. To send your episode homework, go to unbound.charactercrusade.com and follow the submission instructions. You can also check out all the gear we have to offer at shop.charactercrusade.com. Actual scientific results may vary depending on availability in your area. If your Skyrim lasts more than 24 hours, consult your alchemist. Only one entry per person will be considered per season.
Done. All right. That was good, guys. All right. That takes care of the mid-rolls. Now we got to do the outros.
Boom!
Let me stop the recording and switch over to... Now, I'm doing the last one, right?
Yes, Matt was going to do one. I was doing two.
Yes.
Okay, let me restart the recording. Okay. All right, we're good.
Unbound Roleplay Workshop is a production of Character Crusade and Couch Warrior TV. For more information on our podcasts, videos, past Unbound seasons, or to follow us on social media, visit our website at www.charactercrusade.com.
If you would like to get involved in Unbound, you can find everything you need to know, including schedule, season syllabus, homework submission, and play rules on our Unbound information page. Go to unbound.charactercrusade.com to get more from your Skyrim experience.
All right. You okay with that? Can you splice it together easily enough, or do you want to do the last sentence again?
No, I'll splice it.
Okay, got it.
I think I got a big enough pause I can work with.
All right. For more than 3 years, Character Crusade has set the standard in Skyrim roleplay ideas and innovation. This podcast would not be possible without support from listeners like you. Make a donation in any amount through our Patreon campaign. Visit donate.charactercrusade.com and join our growing group of faithful patrons. Thank you for your support. Beep.
All right.
You may wish to do the first sentence again since we had a bit of a gurgling engine outside.
A gurgling engine? A gurgling?
Well, at least we didn't have the guy on the motorcycle tearing down the road.
Was it a gurgling?
It wasn't a bubbling.
Okay, are we ready? I shall do it again. Gurgling.
Gurgling.
I hear it. Do you hear the gurgling? And
Someone.
it's not coming from my kitchen sink.
Someone.
Is it that time?
It is that time. Check your watches. Synchronize your watches. Here comes the
Go
gurgle.
before the girdle.
Okay, before the girdle.
Before the girdle. That's a totally different scenario.
I am wearing my podcast girdle. Yes.
Excellent.
Girdle of giant strength. All right, here we go. Again. Ready, set, For more than 3 years, Character Crusade has set the standard in Skyrim roleplay ideas and innovation. This podcast would not be possible without support from listeners like you. Make a donation in any amount through our Patreon campaign. Visit donate.charactercrusade.com and join our growing group of faithful patrons. Thank you for your support. That was horseshit. I'm going to do that again.
You need to do thank you for your support like James.
Yeah.
And we thank you for your support.
For more than 3 years. Okay.
Alright.
For more than 3 years, Character Crusade has set the standard in Skyrim roleplay ideas and innovation. This podcast would not be possible without support from listeners like you. Make a donation in any amount through our Patreon campaign. Visit donate.charactercrusade.com and join our growing group of faithful patrons. Thank you for your support.
Boom.
All right, we've done that.
Bow.
That be done.
Bow.
All right.
And thank y'all for your patience.
That was a good podcast. Thanks, guys, for inviting me.
Yeah, excellent. All right,
See you
now
next week.
flip to the script.
Script.
Okay, you're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, Season 3, Episode 1. Is this? Okay, and then... Okay. So we got cold open, followed by intro, followed by no dicking around section.
Correct.
And then we jump into workshop. Okay. How is everybody doing out there? Let's connect, shall we?
Stunned. Stunned and amazed, I imagine.
So go to lostbarrow.charactercrusade.com. lostbarrow.charactercrusade.com and enter the promo code DEADBEVERAGE.
All one word.
This is I couldn't be more grateful to our sponsors, guys. I mean, this is so generous.
Very generous. Very.
Really?
You have to be dead from the neck up not to take advantage of this offer.
You have to be. Seriously.
Ain't no lie.
Yeah.
Ain't no lie.
You have a cranium full of ash.
Yeah. So essentially what we got going on here is we're doing one t-shirt giveaway for homework, and we're doing another t-shirt giveaway for by our sponsor, Lost Barrow, has offered to give away a Draugr Lager t-shirt.
That's pretty amazing.
That is super generous because that's like $20 at least.
At least.
I mean, that's huge.
That's big value.
That's probably the largest single sponsorship thing we've had
Ever, yeah. Seriously. From our
history.
real sponsor.
From the real sponsor,
Yes.
Lost Barrow.
Uh-huh. Okay, everybody, we are going to get ready to go into cold open time. What we're going to do here is we're going to record a little intro. That's the intro that we'll use in final production when we put together this episode of the podcast. And then we're going to get immediately into what we would call the workshop section, where we are going to start out by kind of progressing through the syllabus, and we will cover that in some detail once we get there. We are going to have a little bit of an announcement section. I don't know how much there is there. I'm probably going to make an announcement about live streams, perhaps, but a lot of the people that are in this stream already know about what's coming tomorrow night.
Sure.
Do you guys have anything you want to cover in announcements? Announcements are not going to be part of the recording,
correct.
so it's for the live stream only.
I got a couple things I could throw out
Okay,
just for
fabulous.
So
All right, let's do it. All right, so back to the recording. You ready for cold open time?
yep,
All right, how cold do you want it?
ice cold.
Ice cold. All right. Here we go. All right, recording has started. You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, Season 3, Episode 1. I'm Stu.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
Boom.
Man, we're getting good at that.
I know, pretty slick.
Man, that
pretty
one
slick.
sentence
hang on, I
nailed
gotta
it.
Be careful not to take a look.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that now?
Just a little.
Just, that's not very nice.
All right, are we ready?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Character Crusade Unbound, a community roleplay project where we create a challenge and then play together and share our stories.
Nice. What an
Yes.
excellent idea.
Season 3, Episode 1. This is exciting. We have been on hiatus for quite a while.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
several months.
Yeah, good to be back. But it was enough time for us to do a number of different things. The first one was to do the marathon, which actually turned out really well. I think it's worth mentioning. Thank you to those of you who participated and helped us out. Big round of applause to everybody.
Absolutely.
We hit our goal. We exceeded our goal.
And then some.
Yep.
And what was that? We ended up in around 1,300 out of 50,000.
Yeah, the goal was 1,000, and I think the final number we hit was like 1,125.
Right. But out of all of the podcasts going on, I remember you posted something on that, and I can't remember the context or the exact numbers, but it was pretty good.
I can't remember. I did post something on Discord. If you want to look that up, you can. It was about us punching above our weight.
Right.
It is in the Extra Life channel on Discord, and we were definitely coming in way above what other podcasts and channels of our size were.
Right.
So I think that's a real testament to the community. So definitely appreciate that very, very much.
$1,125.
Yep. Yep.
And I wish I had better command of the numbers, but I know that over the course of that weekend, streamers raised several $1 million for Children's Miracle Network. So I think that was fabulous. All right, let's talk a little bit about just announcements for the stream. All right, Joe, do you got some stuff you want to cover? Let's go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, actually, and this is channel specific. If you have been following the Panic Monk and my one playlist,
it's one more than I have.
Lost in Time, which has been going on for quite some time, is actually, and I know I've probably mentioned this before, but is actually coming to its end. I'm going to say probably about 3 more episodes, and that is a wrap.
Wow.
We're going to stick a fork in it and call it done. So I have episode 74 currently in the can. I just got to do the audio piece for it. And then it's recording the final, probably end up being 2 more. So
awesome.
That is coming to a wrap, and then we're going to take a little break and switch gears a little bit.
Cool.
The only other thing is I want to actually take this time to shout out a couple other streaming channels, which I don't do very often, but I think they're of note and I enjoy them, so
all right,
I'm going to do it.
Do it.
Do it now.
One is the Lexi Kitty on Twitch. Super chill, relaxed, probably the most welcoming environment I've experienced. So if you like a lot of variation and a whole variety of different games, check her out, the Lexi Kitty on Twitch. And the other one is the Boogie Night. The Boogie Night is also a small channel on Twitch and has a YouTube channel as well. So big variety of different things there. Kind of migrates somewhat towards some of the horror games if you like that, but has a huge variety of between music and games and all that kind of stuff. So
nice.
Super articulate and just generally nice people. So check them out if you get a chance and see if you like them.
Awesome.
That's
I like
about
that.
all I got.
All right, cool. I just wanted to put a reminder out there that tomorrow is the relaunch of Tuesday night live streams. So every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. we are going to be live streaming, and we are going to be live streaming Skyrim, a variety of different characters. We've got 5 characters in the stable, and we'll be picking different characters from that stable and live streaming every Tuesday night from 7 to 10.
U.S. Central Time.
Central Time. Yep, Central Time, baby.
Not 5 to 10 p.m., whatever time zone you're in.
Correct.
Which I believe is -6 GMT or -5. I don't remember, but
I don't know.
So, tomorrow night we're going to be starting out with Rune Runner live, and then next week we'll be moving back to Black Prince, and we'll be alternating between these characters.
Cool.
Depending on how the stories evolve, depending on what I'm in the mood for. I've got 5 characters who all offer really different experiences. So I can pick whichever one suits me based on what I'm into at the moment. The idea is that we'll be recording 3 hours of footage on Tuesday nights, and then I will probably just be releasing that straight out as a video, a recording of the live stream, as opposed to trying to break it up into episodes and do all that business. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. The way life is shaping up, I just don't seem to have a lot of time for production work outside of my allotted recording time. So I'm thinking at this point, we're going to do live streams, and that's going to be how these characters are going to move forward.
And then what happens? They put you back in your cage after you're done playing?
Correct.
Okay, just checking.
That is
That's
how
actually
that
really
works.
that's really good news. That means, at least to me, that you've been able to overcome some of the hurdles in converting these characters fully.
Yes, in fact, the last week and a half or so, I've had 2 live streams where, thank you to all of you who came online for those live streams and helped me troubleshoot issues. I got all 5 of those characters up and running, all confirmed.
Nice.
I got all the saves ready to go. So I think I'm in pretty good shape now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are they backed up somewhere other than on your PC in case you need them?
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Everything's written down. Everything's written down.
Yes, it's all written in my notebook.
Excellent.
Yep,
That's
yep,
great.
yep.
Offline
So-
paper copy.
Yeah, I just write out the save by hand.
He writes the any file out.
Yeah. So yeah, tomorrow night is Rune Runner. We're going to be getting back into some Vander. On the list are Vander, Okan. Okan's continuing as a Black Prince. Vander's story we're calling Vander's Second Wind, ironically. And then we're bringing back the prodigious adventures of Marl and Mr. Whack.
Nice.
We're bringing back Barbarian and Idastog so I can get my bashing Barbarian fix. And who else is in there? Who else? Who else?
Got Marl,
Help me.
Vander, Idastog, Okan,
Oh, Twist.
and Twist.
Twist.
Oh,
Twist will
yes.
be in there too.
Right. Good
His
Twist.
adventure will continue, and they'll all be pursuing different quest lines, so we should get a lot of variety. All right?
I always think there should be a great
Cool.
jingle going along with the beginning of Rune Runner. It just seems like, kind of an episodic sort of 80s sitcom adventure show.
Yeah.
Rune Runner!
Yeah, I know, right.
That's what you should do, is if you can stop it and pause it mid-action at the very end. Preferably if he's laughing.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Barney Miller episode or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, right. Where everybody's happy at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you freeze frame.
Someone makes a really lame joke.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to restart the recording, and then we're going to launch into podcast proper. Are we ready?
I think so.
Okay, let's do it.
Does anyone need anything from the fridge?
Smoke them if you got them.
Nope, I'm good.
How about we all just take a 5-minute break?
I have this giant glass of Everclear.
Smoke them if you got them.
I think what I'm going to do, Joe, is I'm going to just re-record the intro
Okay.
and then kind of launch into the episode.
Sure.
I think that'll be smoother
Yeah.
than
okay.
trying to splice it together. So, beep boop. Electronics. There's some people out there who like the twist entry. Or the twist intro, I'm saying. Eh? It's kind of like, I don't know, whimsical hip-hop, right? That's why I think of it. When I'm sitting down in the sewers and I'm sitting around thinking about it, I'm thinking, it's like whimsical hip-hop, right?
So, like, the Fresh Prince.
Well, yeah, except without the lame lyrics. Mostly the lyrics are bloody and whatnot. But the music is what I would call, like,
I was wondering where that one went.
whimsical
Cool.
hip-hop, right?
Like a Monty Python skit.
I'm just,
Yeah.
somewhere is hiding a Chim Chim Cheree in there.
Yeah,
I know.
I know. Yeah. I does what I likes and I likes what I does. Do. All right, let's go. We're back to record, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to get down with your bad Skyrim self. Are you ready?
If your Skyrim lasts more than 24 hours, you're alchemist.
Yes.
Oh God,
Seek
24
professional help. Yes.
for sure.
All right, we are recording. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Character Crusade Unbound, the community roleplay project where we create a challenge and then play together and share our stories. And this is episode 1 of season 3. We are oh so glad to be back after being on hiatus. I don't remember how long we were on break. What, 3 months at least?
Many months. Several months.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably at least 3.
Refreshing months, except for the 24-hour extravaganza of no sleep.
Yeah, there's
Nearly
that.
no sleep.
I know.
Well,
Until Brooklyn, I mean.
You didn't
Wow.
sleep.
Yeah.
some of us.
Some of us just caved, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, it was daylight savings time, and we had actually 25 hours when we did the stream. I decided to use that 1 extra hour to sleep. That's what I'm calling that.
It was a hidden hour.
On the marathon. Anyway.
Yes.
But, okay, so we took our time off to really go back and take a long look at this Unbound program, kind of analyze what we did in Season 1 and Season 2, and try to come up with a formula that would make this whole endeavor a bit more solid and make it sort of repeatable, right? So that we could kind of add some consistency, I guess, to the whole process and give people a reasonable expectation of how the seasons will proceed structurally while leaving it open-ended enough, I guess, to preserve some mystery in every episode. And what we came up with was a structure we're calling the Unbound syllabus. And if you haven't seen it, it is available on the website. You can check it out. The syllabus has been broken down by season. So if you go to the homepage of charactercrusade.com, you will see it all laid out, episodes 1 through 6. So that actually means that at the beginning of the season, you'll be able to look all the way up to the end and see all the homework that will be required, the topics that we're going to be covering, and all of that cool stuff. And each one has its own specific name and theme.
And when the homework is due.
And when the homework is due.
I can just imagine the people trying to get ahead on their
All the
homework.
overachievers.
All the overachievers. Exactly.
Say hey. So the first episode of every Unbound season we're referring to as Origins. And this is the workhorse episode where we really set out the rules for what is going to happen in that season. And this is our level set so that we're all on the same page and we all know exactly what we're doing going forward. And then the adventure is to see how each of us take this idea and evolve it in our own way. And we're going to be sharing along the way. So, if you would care to follow along, feel free to join us. Go to the website and click on episode 1. You'll kind of get an idea of what we're covering tonight. We've got a number of things to cover, and for those of you who got involved in our marathon, we did a test run during the marathon of this procedure, and we're going to be launching this into this thing now. There's a couple of things that we're going to need from you. First is your undivided attention as we go through kind of the different options. The other is that we're going to need you to do some voting. And in order to do the voting, you are going to go to the Couch Warrior TV YouTube channel, and then you're going to go to the community tab, and there you will see kind of a blog stream. All right? We're going to be posting polls in there based on selections we make randomly here. And have no fear, there is a little bit of complexity here, but we're going to be kind of guiding you through this as we go, so there shouldn't be any problems, I think, in following along. We're also going to be kind of documenting this stuff as we go and then also after the episode, so when everything is said and done, you can go back to that blog post for post number 1 or for episode number 1, and you can see all the rules we laid out for the episode. All
I
right?
think it would be a good idea for them to go to that community tab now.
I think it would be.
Take a look. I think it would be an excellent idea.
And for those of you listening at a later date, you at least now understand where the options came from.
Exactly.
Right.
They came from the community, so it's all of the people here on this live stream.
Yep.
While we record this podcast, it's their fault.
Yep. Yep.
And if you want it to be your fault next time, join us on the
Join us
season
on the stream.
4
Yep.
That's right.
Origins podcast.
That is the fact. You have to be participating in the live stream to help set the rules. But once the rules are set, the idea is that anyone can follow along.
Right.
Right?
They say you can't win if you don't play, but you certainly can't confound your other community members if you aren't here on episode 1.
That is correct. Now,
Found it.
what I would encourage you all to do is navigate to the website at charactercrusade.com, look for episode 1 in Unbound Season 3, and click on that. If you open that up, you'll see the outline. Now, inside that, you'll see a link to what we're calling our character trait list. All right? And the character trait list is basically a Google spreadsheet that has a total of 87 character traits in it. We are going to be randomly selecting a character trait, okay? We're going to randomly select a character trait. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to roll 3 times. We're going to come up with 3 random options. We're going to post those random options in the polling system. We'll put the poll out and give you 2 minutes to vote, okay? Once we arrive on what that character trait is and the voting is done, then that will be the character trait that everyone has to use for Season 3. Now, in addition to that, your character will also have a second trait. The second trait you can pick yourself. And you can pick that either by looking at our list and just selecting something. You can pick it randomly from our list, or you can come up with it outside of our list, just out of thin air, whatever you like.
Yeah, something in your own head rattling around. Get
Right.
it out.
So we, the Character Crusade fellas, we get to come up with the 3 options, and then you guys get to vote. Now we're going to be doing the same thing with a subplot, all right? But first we got to take care of these character traits. All right, so everybody get to a situation where you can vote.
Everybody vote. Get ready to
Let's
vote.
prepare to do this. Now, I think, what did I say we had? A total of
80-something?
87, was it?
67.
That's what I
67.
thought.
67 character traits.
67.
All right,
That's a lot
so
of traits.
I'm going to type in here 1 through 67,
Oh, you got a roller?
generate. Yep, I do.
What's the number?
All right, the first number is 23.
I feel like we should have ping pong.
I know, right? That's exactly what I was thinking.
What is it?
Bingo!
The first number is 23.
Here, I'll even write it down. 23.
23. The first number is 23.
What's the first
23.
All right. The second number is 31.
31. The second number is 31.
Whoa. Whoa, dear.
That's going to get so annoying.
That's going to be awesome.
I love it.
What about the third
And
number?
right now, he's the only one that knows what they are, so.
Oh, yeah, I know what these are. Okay, now we're rolling our third and final number, which is 67.
67.
Whoa,
The
67.
final number is 67.
For those of you who would like to check on the randomizer, it is actually random, choosing a number between 1 and 67 out on the Google Randomizer Doomafodger. I think that's its official.
yes.
The technical term
The
is
official
Doomafodger.
Google Randomizer Doomafodger. As opposed to the Yahoo whatchamacallit.
Well, that's completely different.
It totally is. It totally is.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have the poll prepared. I have not published it yet. Okay?
That was really fast.
Now, is everybody out there? Get yourself to the community tab.
Come
So go to the Couch Warrior TV YouTube channel page. There you will see a tab on the top that says community. Click on community, and as soon as I post this poll, you'll see it. Now, at that point, Matt is going to start our gorgeous timer, and you will have 2 minutes to make your vote. After 2 minutes, boom, we lock it down.
This is a sample of the timer, which you can see on your screen if you are on the live stream.
Are we ready?
No, we're going to give them 43 seconds to get
43
to the community page.
seconds.
67 character traits. I'm blown away by 67 character traits.
Yes.
I've got like 4 character traits.
Now, of course, this relates somewhat to this idea we've talked about in Season 2 of Unbound, where if you wanted to, you could think of this as kind of a value pair,
Right.
right? So you're going to get to pick the second trait that goes along with the first one that everybody votes on, all right? But the idea is we want to have everybody have some consistencies across all their characters so that we can use that as a discussion point and then see how people diverge from those plans. It's an exercise in creativity, people.
Excellent. Time's up.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay.
And for those of you that are wondering, you can get to the Couch Warrior page very easily by going to cwtv.charactercrusade.com.
Excellent.
Woo! Yes, I love those shortcut links.
Oh, yes.
So nice on a podcast.
yes. Ooh.
Are we ready?
So very
Nice.
podcast.
Are we ready?
Very ready.
Set, post.
Timer
And it is
running.
out there, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to vote. You are voting on a primary character trait.
What are the options?
The options are mean,
Mean.
unmerciful,
Ooh,
and
unmerciful.
stubborn.
They all seem to be somewhat linked. Do all 67 traits have to do with negativity?
Every single one.
Are there
Now-
other traits like flatulence?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like you to do is also understand. Oh.
You can whistle and hum. That's right, Trebek.
All right. Copyright strike.
I thought that was I thought that was a MIDI file. I thought that was created
Yeah.
by a high school student.
Sounded like it.
As a project track.
1 minute of voting left. We are halfway through the voting
Only
time.
1 minute. 55
1 minute
seconds.
remains.
Now, for those of you who are taking this in as a podcast, remember, if you'd like to get in on these, episode 1 Origins season setup activities, you have to attend the live stream to do that. So join us in a live stream. If you want to know when we're live streaming and what's going on, you can always go to events.charactercrusade.com to check out our full schedule.
And in addition, if you want to try to pull this off, you can go to the spread. You can go. Is the Google Doc public?
Yep.
You can go
Spreadsheets
there
are.
and do your own randomization if you so feel inclined.
Yep. If you would like to do that, please feel free to do so. If you go to the Origins or Episode 1 entry
It will have a link.
on the homepage, you have links to all these documents, and you're free to use them whenever you want. Okay,
And the time is up.
voting is over.
So it says.
Final refresh. Ladies and gentlemen, by popular demand, the primary character trait is going to be stubborn.
Stubborn.
Yes.
What was the order, may I ask?
Mean, unmerciful, stubborn.
Mean was the least voted for.
Correct. 12% voted for mean, 38% for unmerciful, and 50% for stubborn. Okay.
Excellent.
It's nice to know that we don't have a lot of mean-spirited people.
Yeah, there are some good comments in here saying that stubborn has more flexibility. Stubborn seems more nuanced. The other two are less flexible,
We have a
etc.
highly engaged group of people who must know some stubborn people in order to project those kinds of
Whatever.
comments. Like they're going to be helpful.
Yeah, we're never changing this podcast. I'm trying to just. Okay, this is great. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have our primary character trait. Now, you may go out and pick a secondary character trait for yourself. You may do that now. You may do it in the future whenever you want to. But remember, you are picking a secondary character trait that is going to be going along with this character's stubbornness.
And
as it
choose
were.
that as you will, whether it be random or more selective.
Yes.
That is up to you.
That is up to you. Yeah, we are not dictating that, okay? Now, this is always a good point to talk about.
We're not dictating something where there's going to
Can
be
you believe
homework. Okay.
Yeah, we're not. We're not.
Go choose it at random, but remember to do your homework in time.
That's right. We are going to be grading
Well.
this homework.
Ooh.
We are.
Yeah,
That is true.
that's true.
How are we grading it?
You'll see.
Heavy-handedly.
Unmercifully, since no one else has taken that.
And stubbornly.
Stubbornly.
Yeah. So this is a great time when we're talking about character traits to also talk about the value pair concept. let's just do a quick review of the value pairs, right? A lot of times, value pairs are something that we should really think about doing as we're progressing through an adventure. And by value pairs, what we're talking about is our emotions or actions or things that take place during a story that have a positive and then negative charge, right? And when you think about value pairs in the context of a Skyrim quest, sometimes it's kind of subtle. It's the sort of thing where the exercise of understanding value pairs helps you go back after the fact and try to understand what the impact of an event or a quest would be on a character. All right? Mm-hmm. So, character is feeling down in the dumps, has nothing to do, is bored, walks into the Riverwood Trader, discovers that the Golden Claw has been stolen. Oh, now they've gone from down in the dumps to their interest is piqued. Now I'm interested. The Golden Claw, what's that? Could I get it back? Would you pay me to do it? I've got an adventure. Now I'm stoked. Dun, 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 dun. Right? Right? So my value pair is that I've gone from bored to engaged. Now I set out on the trail. I'm climbing the mountain. I'm engaged. I'm excited. I'm ready to be heroic. And then I come to the first watchtower where I fight the bandits. And the bandits kick my ass and I win just narrowly. And now I've sunk down to the depths. Maybe I'm not as good a warrior as I thought. I've gone from, now my value pair is, I went from confident to maybe not so confident. Now maybe I'm thinking, I'm a poser.
I'm a poser.
Maybe I should get some armor.
Yes.
I'm a poser.
Do I want to do this? Will I get killed? What's happening? All right. And you can take it into even more granular levels than that.
Pretty much every time I restart
it's
Skyrim.
Almost kind of like action and reaction in some ways.
Yes, and what it does is it illustrates the idea that people and characters in stories specifically are constantly in this state of flux back and forth between things going well, things not going so well, back and forth. But it's that sense of change that gives us an idea. It forces us to stop and think about how does a character evolve. So maybe a minor event like that is not enough to make a character change in a real significant way. However, something major could. So maybe we're feeling down in the dumps like a poser, but we climb to the top of the tower and we open the chest that we find there and find a great piece of armor. Oh,
and
now I'm ready. I've got some gold. I've got some new armor. Now I'm ready. I'm engaged. Now I'm hoofing it up the trail and I'm coming to the entrance of the barrow. Now there's more bandits than there were at the tower, right? And so maybe I'm feeling like a poser again. Maybe I do a little bit better than I did last time, right? So you get this vacillation back and forth, and maybe nothing significant about the character changes at this point until you get to the end of the quest and you defeat the boss, you find the stone tablet. Now you're feeling heroic. Mm-hmm. You completed the quest, something's changed, and now you've gone beyond this idea of, okay, maybe I can do this. It was rough, but I defeated all these guys. I've got the objective now. I'm gonna book it to Whiterun, and I'm gonna turn this thing in. And we all know how things evolve from there, right? That's the concept of the value pair. And all it is a state of mind, something that you use during the course of a quest or some adventuring to just pay attention to what's going on with your character. All right? So that's what that is.
Cool. And that is meant to and will oscillate and fluctuate and change constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing that's set in stone. Mm-hmm. These pairs, these complementary traits or whatever you want to call them, just like real life. I mean, it changes.
That's how it is. And think about it this way too. It's like real life in a lot of ways, but you're also building a story. So in the context of your story, conflict is good. When conflict is going on, change is happening. And when change is happening,
right.
the story is exciting and the character's evolving. So value pairs are just kind of a state of mind. And we've got some interesting input here.
Awesome.
So people are actually going out and they're picking traits, some randomly, some not, I suppose. We've got stubborn and disloyalty.
Ooh.
We've got stubbornness matched with intelligence. Stubbornness matched with proactive.
Stubborn and proactive.
So this one is great. Stubborn and petty.
Ooh.
Oh, that's the making for a real vile character.
See, now, I can see Marl, in some sense, being stubborn and prideful.
Mm-hmm.
Prideful, yes. Very much so. Yeah. And I can see Vander having a stubborn quality as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you could even say something like stubborn and gullible.
Yeah.
In a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Right.
So I think I agree with our listeners that going with stubborn of the three was actually a great choice because
that's
of
a
its
good call.
flexibility. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you,
there's
Google
varying
Randomizer.
degrees, and yeah, you can really pinpoint what it means to be stubborn for your character.
Yep.
Are they stubborn overall, or are they just focused on this one thing that they just won't give?
Yep. Derp Danger has got a stubborn narcissist.
Oh no.
That is fantastic. Stubborn neurotic.
Ooh.
And VIP Gamer 47 says, "Wait, you mean to tell me we're creating a character to plug into a story? What is this sorcery?" Yes,
Character Crusade sorcery.
that's right. We are creating a character-centric story. It's starting with character, and we're working our way outward. It's much like user-centered design when you think about it.
Ooh, it kind of is.
What's that?
Nobody knows.
That's foolishness you're speaking.
Foolishness, yes. Now, the discussion of character and character traits also naturally dovetails with our circles of character conflict.
Dun, dun,
Yes.
dun.
And as we are wont to do in every season of this podcast, we do have to review the circles of character conflict.
We are want to do.
Yes, we want.
We want.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want, what you really want.
All right. So if you're interested, the circles of character conflict are something that you can use to kind of define your character's interaction with themselves in the world, right? We've talked about this endlessly. Joe, would you mind giving just a quick overview of that? And I will look up the article and paste it in here real quick.
Yeah.
Just the outline.
So really, what it starts, it's a bullseye. So we're starting with the center being personal, I believe it is.
Yes.
And then the outer ring, just outside of that, would be interpersonal. And outside of that, the final ring is societal. So if we start from the center, we're talking about, things that are, as it suggests, personal to that character.
Inner demons.
Yes.
Bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
So your inner demons. Outside of the inner demons, you have your reaction to those that are close to you.
Interpersonal, right?
And that is your interpersonal ring.
Friends and family.
And how does the character interact with those NPCs, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the societal ring, which is how do they view society and their place in it, and the maybe even, for example, like the governing structure, that kind of thing.
This is a man who knows his circles. Right here. I love this.
And
so fantastic.
I know you're going to put a link up, but you can always go to the homepage at charactercrusade.com and just use the search bar and put circles of conflict, and it will give you a result that you
Can you believe
Yep.
that was
follow.
published in 2015?
I know.
I know,
It's kind of amazing.
It's been around a while.
It has. And really what it is, it's a visual model for helping you understand your character's personality traits. And usually what we recommend doing is starting by defining what is at the center. And the reason that we're talking about the circles of character conflict now is that you've got a primary and a secondary character trait. If that is something like stubborn and narcissistic, now you can take those traits in hand. You can look at the interpersonal circle of the circles of character conflict model and try to understand how your character is impacted, how what are their personal demons and their view of themselves, right?
That may drive those traits.
That may drive those traits or are driven by those traits.
Right.
And then work your way outward. Think of it as kind of a rock in the pond, and
ripple.
if you hate yourself, you're going to reflect that hate onto the people around you, and it's going to impact everything in this spreading circle around your character.
Yeah, so in that analogy, it's like kind of figuring out some of those reasons why your character would hate themselves. So, or whatever your conflict or inner demons might be.
Right. So what we're doing here is in the character setup portion of the Origins podcast, we start out with those traits, but those traits, what they are is the seed of an idea. And the circles model will help you kind of crystallize those and then expand on them. So generally what I recommend doing is just, putting together a document where you've got, personal, interpersonal, societal, and just typing up a paragraph about how you think those character traits that we've picked randomly and you've picked yourselves will manifest in each of those circles. And all it is a one-pager that will help you kind of get an idea of how this character is going to function in the world. Okay?
So if I remember right, I think the circles of conflict kind of came out of the idea of the personality traits from
kind of. Yeah,
one of the old games.
It's an
Top
alternative
Secret that we used to play.
Yeah.
But what really I think works with the circles is that instead of being so finite and so definite, it allows those areas to kind of blur and overlap in some ways. It's a lot more ambiguous, which makes it more flexible.
Correct. We used to do a much more tightly defined psychological profile model.
That's the term I was looking for.
And the psychological profile model was great and everything, but it was not flexible.
No, because it everyone's profile is different upon situation.
Right.
I mean,
yep.
If we go with the stubbornness, I might be stubborn about this one aspect, but very flexible about something else.
Correct.
So, and that psychological profile didn't allow for that kind of flexibility, not easily.
That's correct.
The same no matter what?
What's that?
You acted the same no matter what the circumstance?
More or less, that was kind of the effect that profile gave because it was so
it was
definitive.
Rigid.
Gotcha.
It was rigid.
So you had to really work to go outside of the boundaries of it, where the circles of conflict allow that to happen more naturally.
Yep. Okay. What you want is a model that's flexible enough so that your character can evolve over time, because that's what good characters in a story do.
Absolutely.
They evolve and they either become the hero or they descend into chaos or they're changing, right? And it's the change that makes the story good.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is make sure that we're not shackling ourselves to a model that's too rigid. And Circles does that. All right? So if you want to review that, go out and do that. As Joe said, you can go to the website, charactercrusade.com, and just go to the search box and type in Circles. You'll find it right at the top of the list. It outlines exactly how it works. It gives you a visual of what the model looks like and then shows you an example of what you would write up in each one of those categories. It's very brief, but it's extremely powerful when it comes to roleplay. Okay, are you ready, gentlemen? It's time for us to move on to story setup. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, people, story setup is next. So to do this...
And we're talking plot.
When you search for circles of character conflict, it's the first thing that comes up.
It really
Google.
is.
It really is.
Oh, on Google too?
On the Googles.
Oh, that's funny. Well, so
nice.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, Circles.
So, story setup, plots.
Story setup. The way that this is going to work is we're going to have a primary plot and a secondary plot. Now, one of the things that we've established is all of our characters in Unbound need to have a common thread that is the same across all of them. That is what's going to drive discussion and conversation throughout this entire series. Okay? So what we want to do is we're going to come up with two plots, a primary and a secondary. Now, in the character setup exercise, we came up with I guess, a primary character trait. Now we're going to step back and we're going to let you guys figure out what your primary plot is, but we're going to come up with, as a group, the secondary plot. This would be kind of like a subplot, right? But because this is your story and you're driving the role play, we want you to come up with your own high level or main primary themes for your story. So
now again, it doesn't have to be done this very moment.
It does not.
If you feel inclined, have at. Otherwise, let it mull.
Yep.
Think about it if you need to. And
mulling is such a great word.
Mulled wine is even better.
Yeah. You know what?
What are you doing? Leave me alone. I'm mulling.
Next time we do this podcast in 2 weeks, we're having mulled wine. I'm going to mull some wine.
I got a really good glühwein recipe at home.
Sounds very Scandinavian, like celebrating.
Sounds like
the holidays.
Elmer's to me.
Glühwein
Glühwein
is like, I think it translates, it's a German term for glow wine. It warms you.
Oh.
It's basically their term for mulled wine.
Awesome.
Well, I'm sorry to have sent us down that direction, but apparently I'm not as sorry as I should have been.
Well, it's
now I'll be mulling for 2
delicious spices and like mashed torchbug thorax. So it glows.
Torchbug thorax.
Okay. Are you ready?
I
Now,
don't know if I can be ready after that.
for those of you who are following along with us, you can follow along with this podcast episode by going to season 3 on the website. Pick out the first episode, Origins. Inside that post, you will find a reference to the second part of this, which is story setup. There you're going to find a link to a Google spreadsheet called Plot List. View Plot List. You can open that up. And our plot list is quite extensive, even more extensive than our character trait list. We've got 96 total options, and we're going to do the same thing as we did last time. We're going to randomly determine 3 subplots, and then we're going to put those up for a vote. So make sure that you've got the community site handy. All right. So what did I say was the number? 96. All right. Let's put that in.
96.
Must have been a good year.
Generate. 65, Joe.
The first number is 65. Our plot tree, our first subplot is 65.
We'll have to read through these when we're done. Just 65.
Oh, wow. This one is freaky.
You have to read it when we're all done choosing numbers.
Freaky.
Freaky.
Our second subplot is freaky. What number?
Okay, hang on.
He's copying and pasting.
Tell me now. I need a number to say in a very smooth and
Well, here's the problem. Some of my plot descriptions
Are too lengthy.
are too lengthy for the thing.
Can you provide a synopsis?
Yeah, I'm going to try to reduce them down a little bit here.
But we can
it's like trying to figure out a vanity plate.
How am I supposed to spell tennis anyone on my license plate?
Tennis, anyone?
10NSE1, by the way. That's the first vanity
And
plate.
you've been thinking about this.
That's the first vanity plate I ever saw.
How
in my
long
life.
have you been waiting to bring
40,
that?
like 40 years.
Yeah.
I think it's funny too, because actually now it's just a personalized plate.
Yeah,
And
it
no
isn't
one
a vanity
refers to
plate
it as a
anymore.
vanity plate.
Yeah,
Okay, I got the
Except
first
my
one
brother.
settled.
except your brother
Yes.
calls it a vanity plate.
All right, so the second number is 58.
58. The freaky subplot second number is 58.
Nice.
Nice. Is that
Okay, our third number
digs?
is 11.
11? The third number has been turned up to 11.
That's from Bill and Ted.
Oh, it is. Excellent.
I've got their band shirt on.
Oh, you too. The Wild Stallions. Fantastic.
I see black.
How much more black could it get? The answer is none. None more black.
None more black. How do you know it's so black? Will you read these subplot options in their entirety from the Google Doc, or are you going to read the summary version of the summary?
I will read it.
The synopsized version of the summary.
Synopsized.
Yeah, this character limit is killing me, man.
There are no limits to our characters. What are you talking about?
Well played,
Are you
Matt.
saying Google is limiting our characters?
It sounds that way.
Maybe we should use Evernote.
Bastards. Evernote.
It's an elephant that never forgets. Unless you forget your password. And then you... doesn't matter that it doesn't forget because you've forgotten.
I hate passwords. I hate them.
Don't you just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Okay, I'm going to be. I'll have to explain this. Okay, so what you're going to get in the poll will be abbreviated versions of these, but I can read to you the full versions so we have a little bit of context.
Okay.
Okay. So shoot, what was
Number 65 was...
number
random,
65?
chosen...
Okay, here we go. This is a preview, so you kind of know what you're voting for. These are a little bit longer than character traits, so that's helpful. Okay, number 65 is a pregnant woman goes into labor only to find that the baby has completely disappeared. So she, in essence, goes into labor and gives birth to nothing. Okay?
That's bizarro.
All right.
Sounds metaphorical.
Now understand that these are subplots. So these can be things that are attributed to your character specifically, or to someone around your character, or to someone your character might interact with in the future.
So directly, indirectly, or other.
Also important to remember that these subplots do not constitute your character's background story. These are things that could be a background story, or they could be something that you incorporate at level 30. You're projecting ahead, right? So you can do with these things as you choose. All right? The next one was 58, right?
58.
Okay.
Yep.
An excavator befriends a drogger. An excavator befriends a drogger.
What you want?
Hello. Okay.
Friend.
Okay, the last
is
one
Number 11.
is 11. A plague takes over a small town and turns them into geniuses with one fatal side effect.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay?
A
Are
dragon.
we ready?
I saw a dragon.
Shut up! Ready, set, vote.
Do, 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 do.
So those are really interesting.
Woman
And
goes into
incredible.
labor to find the baby has disappeared. An excavator befriends a drogger. And a plague takes a small town and turns people into geniuses, but it's fatal. All right?
The idea of the fatal genius.
Yep.
It's a
Okay.
story
So,
for the ages.
yeah, this will be really interesting to see how these are, one, incorporated, and two, how they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Tell me.
Utilized.
Utilized, interpreted.
Interwoven. Yes, interpreted.
Interpreted. That's a great word for this.
What happens if none of the people vote
Then,
because they're frightened by the options?
oh,
Then they abstain.
our followers are
And everyone abstains.
far much more brave than that.
Are you saying that none of our followers know what abstinence is?
I'm saying
No,
that
they just choose not to.
They choose not to abstain.
you
Okay.
get the season you vote for.
Ooh. 45 seconds for voting. For people
Oh,
to
wow.
to not abstain.
This is getting amazing here. This is
Amazeballs!
Amazeballs.
Well, for every minute spent. Look, I even got the moustache for it.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent capital.
You have 15 seconds left.
All right, so we've made fun of the Germans and now the Brits.
Yeah. Or,
very
you know,
easy to do.
Americans of the Gilded Age. The robber barons.
Yes, that's true. The robber barons of the 1800s.
I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was fond of saying, bully.
Hey, guess what?
No,
Time's up.
Oh.
Voting is ceased at this point.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, 62% of our viewers tonight voted for Woman Goes into Labor to Find the Baby Has Disappeared. 62%. That is the winner.
Wow,
That's
that's a
ginormous.
big percentage.
What was the rest of the
24% voted for Excavator Befriends Draugr, and 14% voted for Plague Takes a Small Town, Turns People into Geniuses, but is fatal. That was of 21 votes. We've got 5 comments. Woman goes into labor because nice arcane or political stories could come from this.
Yep.
It's a Daedra, I tell ya. Them filthy Daedra. I don't know. Woman goes into labor. That's just weird. And finally, because I came up with an awesome idea for it.
Oh, was that EJ?
No, that was the wind.
Oh.
A mighty wind.
EJ's always having epiphanies, so I just figured.
I know.
Is that what the E stands for?
Epiphany, yes.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so we've got our subplot, okay? Woman goes into labor only to discover the baby has completely vanished. That's freaky.
Is it
like
vanished or disappeared?
You make the call.
Just wondering.
But I did like the eyebrow thing.
You make the call. Is that an NFL reference?
I don't know.
It sounds like one of those old NFL films,
It
doesn't
does.
it? You
It
make
does.
the call. No.
I haven't watched the NFL in years.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is great. Okay,
That's
So-
some good stuff. I think there's a lot of meat to work with.
I agree.
Gonna
Your
exercise
house
those
in-
creative juices.
Okay, now we got a couple of talking points here.
All right.
We could mention. One is this idea we've talked about. I've talked about it briefly, not any time recently, but when you're thinking about your plot, how you're going to lay out your story, there's a couple of different ways you can approach it. When you talk to authors, people who write novels and screenplays, there's kind of 2 different styles that people have for writing a novel. Typically, it's usually a style that involves, the person who kind of knows exactly how the story is going to end, and they're very structural writers. They're outliners, right? They lay everything out, right? Now, to some degree, there are elements of that lend themselves okay to a Skyrim adventure, but understanding that we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the middle, a lot of times we're kind of more in the style of write-as-you-go authors, right? The story, we've got to start, and the story's kind of evolving, and we're seeing where it goes. We're taking the events that happen to our character at any given time and interpreting them as we go along. There's a style of novel writing, which is kind of the same thing. And when I write stories and make stories for YouTube, that's kind of how I tend to do it, right? I don't like to outline a story completely. I like to just chase the story and see where it goes. And I think Skyrim lends itself really well to that style of storytelling. And part of the fun is understanding your character well enough and understanding the high points of your concept enough that you can respond in really, really interesting ways to different things that happen in the game.
Right.
So when you encounter those bandits at Voltheim Tower, understanding that your character is a stubborn narcissist, how do they react to the idea of being forced to pay a toll
Right.
by a series of bandits?
Right.
Think about that concept, right? Now, that's going to be very different than the character who maybe isn't stubborn, is coming from a different point of view. Maybe that person's happy to pay. Maybe that person's going to move on. Whatever it is. Now think of the same scenario through the lens of a stubborn narcissist who also has whatever this mystery is floating around of a birth without a baby, right? What does that story mean? Is it part of that character's background? Is it a legend they're chasing? Is it something that happened to a relative they're going to investigate? Is it, what is it, right? So when you walk into a scenario in Skyrim that would normally be kind of a forgettable thing where, oh, I picked up a quest, they asked me to go get this thing, I go and get this thing, and then I bring it back again. If you look at that kind of a fetch quest, for example, through the lens of a character with a very distinct, powerful, and strong personality, and then this thing that's driving them, now suddenly a simple fetch quest can look very different. Right?
Yeah, it can have a lot more purpose to it than just
Yes.
retrieving an object. The object might have way different meaning than just a golden claw that
Correct.
some barkeep or general mercantile wanted.
Misplaced. Yeah.
So,
Yep. And when we talk about plot, sometimes it's useful to, even though we understand that our story is evolving, to think about kind of what the units of structure for a story are. Because one of the things that I like to do when I was putting a story together is I would get a few episodes in, and when I felt like I was through a major character movement or something like that, I would break it up and I would say, okay, that feels like Act 1.
Right.
It kind of feels that way in my gut. I feel like there's been this significant change in the character, and now we're turning to the next chapter, right?
Right.
You can kind of do that in your mind as well, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I find what that does for me is it creates milestones along the way where it forces me to really think about what's the character doing?
Right.
How have they changed? How have they evolved? How have the things that have happened in the last, 10 levels been significant?
I think kind of a fresh example for me personally would be fetching Keening in my storyline. So Snock is all about trying to find these tools of Kagranak, and part of the game is to fetch Keening from a courier. And then you bring it back to Arneal and you go through all this stuff. Well, from my character's perspective, would he have really brought that back right away? Probably not, because he needs it for other purposes. And he'll get back to Arneal when he needs to do so. So that story arc that I had going for him kind of put a whole new twist on the whole Keening fetch quest. So, I mean, eventually he did go back and discovered that Arneal had been murdered, but...
How long did it take to go back?
I don't think I probably could have drawn that out a little bit longer, but I didn't see really any purpose to do so.
Sure.
So, he went, he first he found Wraithguard, and then he got Keening, and then decided he needed to know exactly what Arneal was all about. What's your deal? What are you doing? Why do you need this?
Right.
So he wanted to go find out what more Arneal would have known about these artifacts.
You sound stuff.
So he went to find out what Arneal was all about. But even then, he probably would not have relinquished the dagger because he needed that for his purpose.
I think the important thing to note there, too, is that your reason for going back and basically confronting Arneal was because there was an element of mistrust, right? Like something was fishy, right? But
Right.
I think that the thing to remember here, and it correlates to things that are going on in the chat right now, is that if you've got a character, for example, where you're trying to figure out how do I convey who this character is in the context of rigid Skyrim structure, your decision to do that thing was driven by a personality trait that Sanok had,
Right.
which was this idea that he was in some way either mistrustful of Arneal or uncertain about the situation. There was uncertainty there or something like that, right? But that's what drove him to the decision.
In combination with him not seeing the value in what Arneal was doing as much as what he knew he needed to do. So it was kind of that whole culmination of all of that.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So I think it would be helpful for us now to talk about, in practical terms, in Skyrim, how would we go about playing a character that was stubborn?
You said in practical terms. I thought you said impractical terms. I was very confused.
In the practical.
Considering the practical.
Of being practical.
Being pragmatic. So if we've got a stubborn character...
Pragmatic about being stubborn. That's great.
What does that mean? If you've got a stubborn character, it means maybe that's going to influence what dialogue options you choose.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the Valtheim Tower was a good example. Are you stubborn and not going to pay the toll that that woman is trying to extract from you,
right?
Simply out of spite because you don't want to,
right?
Or is there another reason?
Yeah. Or are you going to go up and talk to the Greybeards and be kind of belligerent and be the person who says, I'm not here for instruction from you. I just want power.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to pay homage to you guys. I'm not going to honor your power. I'm here because, as far as I can tell, I'm the Dragonborn and give me what I'm owed.
Right.
Right?
Or,
gimme.
Who do they think they are calling me? And
what do you think?
Is that even me?
What do you think this is? Dragonborn
I'm not going to
delivery?
go up there.
Yeah. Or
you
this
made
could
me
also
walk up 7,000 steps to do something I already know how to do.
Yeah. It could manifest itself in different ways too. Like every once in a while you get a side quest where there's some NPC who offers to go with you and you say, no, I don't need your help.
Right.
Where you may have another character that would say, absolutely, come with.
Right.
Right? So the thing to think about here is it's about what your motivations are for making decisions.
Right.
If you're going up to Valtheim Tower and you're deciding not to pay the toll because you're interested, because you want the fight that comes after, then you're playing the game like it's a game. If you're making the decision based on a character trait, like you're being stubborn and saying, I'm not giving you 200 gold pieces of my money, this is hard earned, you're making it based on a character trait or personality decision.
And this, because I just did that actually with Sanok not too long ago, which he totally did not pay it and intimidated his way out of it.
Wow.
And I would say that actually Sanok is fairly stubborn in a lot of aspects of his life. He's not one to want to be told how to do something or why.
Right.
In some cases, he will listen. It depends on the person.
Right.
He would always have listened to his master, but is very reserved in who else he might put stock into.
Right. Absolutely.
So, that's just kind of... It's funny how that came on. I just started thinking about it because it's relatively recent, when I went through some of this stuff. And come to think of it, Sanok's kind of a stubborn bastard.
Yeah. It's, and that's how people are. I think what I would encourage you, dear listener, to try to remember here is that what we're talking about is character traits that you can introduce at any time and in any way you wish.
And anything can trigger them.
Correct. Just because we say a character is stubborn, that does not mean that your character needs to be stubborn at the start of the story.
Right.
if you want to, you can say that at the beginning of the story, for the first 10 levels, your character is not stubborn.
Perhaps
and what
they're
you're looking for
very naive and gullible even.
is the event that's going to trigger them and turn them into the stubborn person they become. You can use it at the beginning, in the middle, in the end, however you want. And that's what I think is
circles
important.
nicely back to the value pair.
Exactly. Because it's possible to go into our character trait list and come up with something that's not appealing to you. It could tell you something like, oh, your character's sheepish.
Right.
Well, maybe they start out that way. And maybe something happens.
Right.
You know, maybe on the road to Riften, they get into a huge battle with vampires. They come out on top, and suddenly that's the trigger that turns them from being that into something else.
Or
so
vice versa.
remember, it's an evolution of the character. The characters aren't static, and you're deciding where this thing fits in. Okay? So, if you want to go into that list of character traits and pick more stuff, you can pick more stuff. Okay? You just use it when and how you want, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What makes sense?
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think a lot of at least the couch warriors, the couch potatoes. I think even if they don't know it, they do a lot of these things anyway.
Yeah.
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 We're just trying to, I guess,
Put a little structure
put
to
a
it.
little structure and
Yep.
and label things a little bit more clearly.
Yep. And this is a discussion that we're going to be expanding on and adding to, but we'll be having the same discussion at the beginning of each season. And I think it's worth pointing out that if you guys have ideas for really funky plot ideas and character trait ideas that you think we should add to the list, by all means let us know, and we will copy that stuff into our spreadsheets and expand our spreadsheet so that it's even bigger for the coming seasons.
Always looking for ways to to blow those up.
Yep. So earlier I was just mentioning this idea of units of story. The only reason I bring that up is sometimes it's helpful to just step back and use units of story as a way to think about the degree of change. So when we talk about the value pairs, that's really minor change. It's small things that are going on that are causing a character's personality to kind of, or their thoughts to vacillate back and forth, but it doesn't constitute a major change.
Right.
However, if we go from the segment level and we go up a level into the act level, that's where we've got a whole series of events that might be strung together that constitute some major change in a character's attitude, until we get to the end of the Unbound season in episode 6, which we call the apex of the story, where some change happens that is irreversible. You know, that's when you're talking about the climax of the story is when a change takes place that means that this character will never be the same again, right?
I find the Dragonborn is the baby.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God! And
Or
actually,
totally
that's
not.
probably a good segue into taking a quick break and coming back to our second part.
Find the Dragonborn, baby.
I think it is. We are going to take a short break, ladies and gentlemen, and let's take about 10 minutes.
And
All
then
right.
I think we'll talk a little theme.
Ooh,
Yes.
theme.
So very exciting for part 2. We're going to come in and announce what the theme for the season is. This is chosen by the Gentleman Bastards. We choose it. We're going to lay that on you. That will be the reveal. And then we're going to get into a fun discussion about gameplay rules we can use to reinforce the things we've come up with in part 1 of the podcast, as well as any mods we might use to help support our efforts. All right?
See you in 10.
I vote for ghosts.
Ghosts.
Oh no, wait.
Joe loves ghosts.
Ghost provokers.
All right.
right.
We'll see you all in about 10
10
minutes. Bye. Whiterun.
You got to make sure that it all fits in with the cadence of the song, right?
Correct.
Hop a flight to...
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get started here in just a minute or two. I want to thank all of you who have visited our sponsor and put in the promo code. The response has been amazing. If you'd like to get in on the action, supporting our sponsors is a sure way to support this podcast. You can go to lostbarrow.charactercrusade.com. All right?
And enter the promo code Dead Beverage.
Dead Beverage.
All one word.
Yes.
Only one entry per person will be considered per season.
That is correct.
So
And
you-
yes,
so you
we
could
did
enter
not
a
have
lot,
any
but-
interlude music, ladies and gentlemen. I have chosen to significantly simplify our setup here because I'm tired of tearing my shit apart and putting it all back together every freaking time. So, yeah, we're keeping it simple. Maybe at some point in the future I'll find a way. Well, I know how to do it, but I didn't have time to set it up. So,
And that just
We're-
may be the way it is going forward.
yeah, simpler is better, man.
Put your own music on, damn it.
I'll bring a guitar.
There you go.
I'll play.
We'll make some recommendations.
Oh God, please no.
Plinka, plinka, plinka,
I was
plinka.
going to bling a
No.
ukulele.
No.
How about a lute?
All
you
right,
play the
fellas, are we good to go?
Mm.
Joe, I gotta tell you, your haircut looks amazing.
Thank you. I just got
Yes.
it this weekend.
High and tight.
High and tight.
I like that. Keeps the fleas off.
It does help. I've noticed myself itching a lot less.
That's why I cut all mine off. I was just tired of the lice.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Now the bum, that's a whole nother issue.
Are you still braiding your hair down there or what?
That's another podcast.
That's private.
That's another podcast.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are about to launch into part 2 of the Origins episode of season 3 of the Unbound podcast. What I'd like to do is, for the benefit of those who are in the live stream tonight, just let you know that if you've got comments or questions, things like that, you want to post them in the chat, you are free to do that, and we will do our best to monitor that. If you wouldn't mind, please put in question in all capital letters before your post so we can see them as they go in. Now, we also reserve the right to pay no attention to the things that you're putting in there. However, we will try to
look at
take a
that,
look
something we
periodically.
didn't see.
Okay? All right.
Would have been very helpful had they not asked that question.
Yeah, exactly. I want to read the mid-rolls again.
Then we should read the mid-rolls
That was
again.
stinking fun.
Then let's do it.
No.
You could read a different mid-roll.
I could. I love rolls.
Did someone take your mid-roll? What's the matter? Did someone take your mid-roll?
Well done, Matt.
Great Skyrim reference. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another submission. Someone else entering the promo code. Excellent. Dead Beverage.
It wasn't me.
We're getting so much support with our
Matt,
sponsors tonight.
Matt, you can't win.
I know I can't win. That's just the matter of my life, I think.
Yeah.
Employees and family of Character Crusade Podcast
Are not eligible.
Question
Answer.
Yes.
from EJ Lauer. Of course, certainly.
I think that the E stands for enlightened.
She
Yes.
is asking, how are the gentlemen tonight? Matt?
Where are their gentlemen?
When we see them, we'll ask.
Well, the gentlemen bastards. Matt, would you like to start?
All together. I
You
think
be the
we're
first
doing well.
bastard.
I'm doing well, but I'm tired.
Matt's tired.
You just came back from a trip.
I was just on a trip for several days where it was warm and comfortable, except for like the smoke and the fire and stuff. But yeah, it was
So you went west.
went west to California.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a disaster.
There is a lot of very bad stuff happening to the people in the state of California. That is very true, but there are still very many Californians who are not affected by that.
Yeah.
So
It is a rather large state,
it
actually.
is. It is. I had a great opportunity to see what is called Sunset Cliffs out there. Just an absolutely gorgeous view outside of San Diego, looking out at the Pacific
San Diego
Ocean.
area is very nice.
I never have been there before. So I flew in, I drove down to San
It's like
Diego.
that perfect climate too. It's kind of like right in that.
Yeah, like
not sweltering hot, and not super cold. It's just kind of right in that.
winter, spring, summer,
Excellent
fall, it's
zone.
about 75 degrees.
So in the
That's
middle of climates.
Yes, it's mid
A,
climate.
a middling climate.
It's a middling climate.
But
Well-
worked hard, but did not have any opportunity to do any gaming.
Were you there
Nuts.
for work?
I was there for work.
See, that's unfortunate.
Nuts.
Well, nearly all of the travel I do is related to
Well,
work.
I guess that's true.
So we'll have to see what happens over the coming winter holidays.
Well, I'm glad
Which is
that you at
elsewhere.
least were able to see a few sites.
I did see a few sites, and I actually saw a friend is a choreographer from New York, and she is choreographing new musical being put on in San Diego.
Oh,
She's
very
been
nice.
out there for
Fun.
several weeks putting that together.
Cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
That's awesome.
And you
Went
saw
with
some
great.
sweet hoopties while you were out there.
There
You
were
sent
some
us
pretty awesome rides
pictures.
out there. That's very
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
My
Does that
my
date
favorite
me?
was the custom one whose license plate I think was 49 Magoo. And if you look at the car, it pretty much looks like Mr. Magoo, which is pretty awesome.
From the comic
So,
strips.
from
Yeah.
the comic strips.
Funny.
Yeah, so, but there's an advantage in Southern California when your car is not on fire, of course, that they're not being eaten by rolled salt like they are here.
Well,
So
yeah, the northern climates have.
you can have a beautiful car here for about 10 years. And
As
then it turns
one that
into
has
a
just
horrible
recently
rust bucket.
worked on their brakes, yeah, it would be nice if we didn't have all the corrosion and rust
And road salt.
attributed to the
Yeah.
road salt.
Yeah.
I agree.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you've got some questions about the mic and it's sounding like I'm louder. Well, that is a fact because I'm actually facing this microphone. The microphone that you see in the center of the table is the microphone that you're hearing our voices through. And I am directly in front of that microphone, which is set to cardioid mode. I'm sort of wondering if next time we
put
should
on
use it
360?
in 360 mode.
Oh, we could switch it now if you think it would help.
Yeah, sure. Flip the old switch.
And then it'll get all the noise of the people driving by and everything.
Yeah, it'll be great. But because I'm directly
I
in
think
front of the
that's it.
microphone, and because my voice is more important than theirs, that's why it's louder.
That's right. That is why it is that way, isn't it?
No, I'm just kidding.
We have also
he's really
changed
not.
a bit of our microphone protocol
Yeah, we
for
have
this episode so that we don't
protocols.
blow out people's eardrums like we often do.
Right. Now, the cool thing is that we have this microphone in the center of the table so you guys in the live stream can hear. But for the podcast, we're actually recording through
Right.
these
Which
mics.
I think is actually probably another part of the problem is these might be getting in the way more of Matt and I than because you're, as you said, directly into this center mic more
Yeah.
than we are.
That can't be it.
That's because he's more important.
I'm pretty sure. Your assessment is skewed. Skewed, I say.
That's what they call me,
Skewed.
skew.
Well, I would like to ask now that I have given my little piece of update on how I'm doing. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. I have not done any travels, work or otherwise, which is kind of ironic since I work in transportation.
You do. That's true. That's true.
But I don't travel. But I do use the product.
Which is a testament to your ability to demonstrate great patience.
If Joe wouldn't take the buses, I wouldn't for sure. I'd be nervous.
Oh, no.
I took
You're
the bus. I
actually
took the bus
mo-
for years.
You're a great spot to
great.
take the bus.
I am.
But,
I had an express bus. It was awesome.
oh, the express routes
Yes.
are nice. Yeah, for sure.
And then you miss your express bus and you're on the bus for a very long time. But it's still an excellent
Possibly.
bus. Yes.
Possibly. Don't fall asleep.
Don't,
Yes, do not do that.
don't follow what time zone am I in?
Well, that's the thing. With an express bus, I might be tempted to fall asleep. On the city buses, I'm like constantly watching my back, so I'm all keyed up the whole
and
time.
holding on tight to your stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't worry about that on the city buses.
Let's see. Nothing. I guess I really don't have a whole lot of anything interesting to report. There's
Did you get your house fixed?
it's no.
Okay.
Kind of business as usual, I guess. And that by that I mean doing as little as possible, as often as possible.
Yeah.
That's kind of my mantra.
That's an excellent thing to pursue.
Joe likes his leisure.
I do.
I like when we get the texts like late at night on Fridays. Those are the best.
A little too much leisure.
Yeah. What's going on? I don't know, Joe. I'm working again like I do every Friday night. What's going on, man?
What are you doing?
I love that.
I'm about halfway through a Lefroy right now. What are you doing?
That's my
I
favorite.
can only imagine what artist Caleb goes through.
Oh my god. Well,
He often streams later in the evenings.
yeah.
Hey!
Who is it?
Oh boy.
Joe.
Me and social media and adult beverages just should not be combined.
Yeah. Well,
But I'm glad I entertain you.
you do.
I didn't know that you had those.
Oh yeah, you got to look in the fridge.
There's bricks.
There's bricks in there.
I'll have to go back.
Get some bricks.
I even took a page from your book and grabbed
Got
some.
some Everclear?
Yeah,
That's good.
Nice. Well
So.
done.
yeah.
It's a nice chaser for the fire brick.
It is. It is. It's like a match made in heaven.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, other than just tried to plow through and finish up my YouTube story.
Putting on winter tires or anything?
No winter tires. We do all season, but I did just do my brakes,
Very good.
sort of. I did 3 out of 4 successfully.
What happened to the other one?
Seized up.
Well,
I'm dragging the wheel.
Let's talk about northern road salt. Basically, it corroded the emergency brake or the parking brake cables. So
Oh, boy.
when I went to change them, because when I took them off, the shoes that I took off were pretty much just bracket, no pad. And if you're not a mechanical person, you need some of the pad.
The screeching noise, did it get your attention? Did it?
No, and it never really did that. It just was super spongy, and you had to lean on the brakes to stop because only the front ones were working.
What's that lousy noise? Turn the volume up. It'll
pretty
go
much.
away.
I know it's time to change my brakes when I start to see rust deposits on my plastic, tire rims.
Yeah.
Because
So-
it's like I've created a rudimentary lathe inside of my wheel wells.
Basically. So yeah. Anyway, the parking brake cable corroded, basically, so that when I got the new pads on, it was like the brake was on. So when I went to put the drum back, it wouldn't move. Stupid brakes. Whoever invented drum brakes should have to repair them every single day. They're the worst contraption ever. There's only about 1,000 springs in there, and it's just they're
And it's
awful.
frightening because if you have one of those springs shoot off down the driveway, for example, it's not fun.
You speaking from experience?
It sounds like there's a story to be had.
Yes. Let's just say that I like the minivan and the four-wheel disc.
Yeah. Disc brakes are way easier.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got it taken care of, and it now stops properly. So
That's excellent.
that is good.
And I noticed you're not driving it now, so is that...
Actually, I am.
Oh, that's the one that
Yeah,
has
I
the
had
brakes.
a little
Gotcha,
pickup
okay.
out there was the last one. My car actually has 4 disc brakes, so
There's nothing like changing your own brakes and then
though,
taking that first drive.
it's a good thing though, because I've actually learned quite a bit, and now I know, and it's really not the scary thing that you might think it is.
It's not.
There's
And
really
by
not
the way,
a ton to it.
it cuts your price down by 80%.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got, maybe $250 US dollars in parts compared to $700-800 bill from a mechanic to do it.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying. It's U.S. dollars.
It could have been
it's
Zimbabwean
international.
dollars.
It's international.
I saved many pounds sterling.
I assumed that you were paying in euros.
How did you know he wasn't paying in
I could.
He could have been paying in Bitcoin.
I could.
Look at how defensive I'm getting right now.
What a cockbite.
I'll drink to that.
I was totally frightened about doing my brakes the first time. Now I do the brakes
What
on.
a dick.
Now I've done the brakes on my little golf cart car and the truck and the minivan.
What?
So yeah, I've changed the brakes on all of them.
Nice.
Did you say golf cart?
The Versa.
Are they just like bungee
It's
cords?
like a
or
golf court. Yeah. Well, actually, what it is
It's like a Flintstone car.
it's a little boat anchor I throw out the back and it drags in the ground. Yeah.
Oh my god. So that was an experience, but that's about it. Really, kind of business as usual. Nothing real exciting.
I know that you tried to abscond with like a battery pack or a motherboard or something from your son's computer. What happened there?
Yeah, what's going on with that?
Yeah, actually, I do have a new rig.
Well,
new to me.
Does he know that you took those things from his computer?
He does because he built a new one. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have a new rig on new to me. My oldest had built a new PC, and I'm confiscating his old one. So he built a new one thinking that maybe his power supply had died because he wasn't even getting to the BIOS, the post screens. And so I just kind of reseated everything, and I got to the BIOS with no problem. So I'm just going to put in some new hard drives and
Nice.
Get some more RAM and call it good. It's a nice... it's an i5, but it's got a lot more horsepower than the i7 I have in my laptop. And the i5 is actually a really solid
Oh, it really
CPU.
is. It is, actually.
I can't remember the gigahertz on it, but it's pretty decent. And then I think it has it's an XFX Radeon card. I want to say it's a 260 or 270, but it's kind of equivalent to that, maybe that 1050 kind of, if you're going NVIDIA. Sure. It's in that range, 1050, 1060. So it's definitely an upgrade from my onboard
Intel
3000
graphics.
HD.
Yeah.
So I am super looking forward to getting myself a nice solid state and getting that thing kind of tightened up and running. So
Nice. So good.
My next playthrough shall be hopefully markedly improved.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe I can, buffer down the shadow stripes.
That'd be cool, right?
That would be cool.
More jaggy edges.
Yeah.
and all that.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're the worst. But there's nothing I can do about them at the moment.
So there have been some snarky comments here about the table noise and clunk, clunk, clunk.
I'm sorry,
So,
I'll stop putting my
gentlemen,
beverage on
push
the
your
table.
mics backwards. Let's give them a drum roll. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
People are deaf now.
Wipe out.
You deserved that, and you know it. Okay.
And you, Stu.
Oh, me?
Geek.
The geek.
All right.
AKA a-hole.
It's correct. I resemble that remark.
For the protection of our listeners' ears, I've put my giant tureen of beverage on the floor.
Yeah, I blame Matt.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's bring that back.
Yeah. It was that mug. Not too much.
Wasn't my ball.
Wasn't definitely not your ball. It's so appropriate. Anyway.
Only in this room can we do that.
Everyone's like,
I have a visual aid.
Now I'm supremely disturbed.
boy, I don't know if they can see this.
Mason
real
jar,
well.
ball, mason jar.
ball.
Actually, it might be a little bit easier if we do this. It's a binder.
Yeah, it's already spent way too much.
Are you opening a Draugr lager?
No, but I have successfully bottled the first
Oh
batch
yeah.
of Draugr lager. Now it's got to sit for about another week. It carbonates.
So you haven't discovered whether or not you've been successful.
No. I'm just really, really hoping that during the bottling process, I didn't introduce any bacteria into the system here. But you know,
Wow, you're really selling
we'll see.
it, man.
You know,
Well, it is Draugr lager.
it's a fucking science, man. You know, I filtered out the body parts. I did the things. So whatever.
Mostly clean linens,
man.
dude.
Filtered
Mostly
out
clean
the
linens.
part.
Yeah. So it's complicated. It's so complicated.
Did you make it with the fizzy water from the sink?
No, obviously I used bottled water when I made this.
Not Red Bull.
No, not Red Bull. And
Bottled or distilled?
not distilled water.
Okay.
Weird things are done to distilled water. We don't want that.
It's what you use for ironing.
Yes.
It is.
So you don't gunk up your iron.
Humidifiers.
Yes.
That too. So I bottled the beer. It's going to be ready to go technically next weekend, but I may open it on Thanksgiving. That's close enough.
Close
And
enough.
try one because my pops is going to be here. And,
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll do a tester. If
Hi-
it
hi,
works
Here,
out,
Dad.
I don't want to kill him. You know, I don't want to kill him. I
I'm
love him.
fairly sure this is bacteria free.
You know, it's 98% bacteria free.
That's a pretty good. That's an A.
That's
Yeah.
almost Six
Right.
Sigma.
Right. So the trick is right after it's sat in the bottle, the big jug, right? You make a simple sugar syrup, and then you drain the contents of that bottle and mix it in with the sugar water, and then that sugar reactivates the yeast, and then you bottle it real quick. And that little bit of sugar is what causes the yeast inside the bottle then to go bananas and carbonate it.
Oh, okay.
That's
cool.
what's going on there. So
What does the smell like in your closet right now?
A lot better
it's-
than it used to. I
It's
bet.
not. No, it's not. Before it was delicious. Now it's not delicious anymore because everything's sealed up. But if you're kegging, if you're making enough to put it in kegs, then you don't do this step. You put it in the keg and then you force carbonate it in the keg, which is a completely different process. So, yeah, it's going to take me a month by the time this is done. If this sucks after a month of waiting, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'll never brew again.
You're going to call Carl and you're going to get some tips.
Yeah, these bottles are going to become something else.
A chandelier, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah.
I just can't keep the word kegging out of my mind.
Kegging.
It's just something sounds a
Yeah.
little promiscuous about that particular
Kegging.
term.
Doesn't it? Yeah. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you use the promo code, Dead Beverage, it's 1,000% off a keg of Draugr lager. So that is a decent discount.
It's not bad.
you
It's
will
not
notice
bad.
that
It's at
the
least
price-
$1.
Yeah.
Pricing has not yet
US.
been determined.
Yeah, and you know, I
Is
would
it U.S. dollars, right?
did septums. No. US dollars. Thanks, Joe.
There are other places that use
Just
dollars.
clarifying.
Just clarifying.
Just clarifying. What time is it? It's 7. When? You know, I'm just trying to be helpful.
It's Joe's presence that makes this a global podcast because he's always concerned about, what's the exchange rate,
Right?
what we're talking about, and what's the time
the time
difference.
difference?
And he's mastered both of those things, so we got it covered.
Temperature is also important.
Temperature, okay. Celsius.
Celsius.
I was going to say,
Fahrenheit?
are we talking
What are we
about
talking? Is it Kelvin? You don't know.
Now I want to know what the current temperature in Kelvin is.
Okay. Thanks a lot, EJ, for opening this Pandora's box.
So now that it's been 25 minutes of talking about what's going on in our life.
Oh boy.
Or
Let's
what's
see.
not.
Question: if the taste test goes wrong, will your alchemy skill level up? I think it will. I mean, clearly, with the alchemy, you don't have
Absolutely.
to succeed. You just got to try.
Yeah. It's all about learning.
And I can tell you that if you aren't interested in alchemy and you just want to walk around eating everything you've gotten, you can get very sick, but you do level up.
You do learn
Exactly.
things.
and I brewed this beer.
Like, I'm not eating another toe.
I brewed this beer exactly like I was supposed to. I got all the right ingredients. I got everything set. I dressed like a lumberjack. The whole thing. So.
Wow. Did you wear jeans and roll up the cuff?
Yeah, like a neckbeard.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're golden. How can it not work?
Yeah. I mean, I live in Uptown. I mean, I have to look the part.
He's an uptown boy.
Weird lumberjack.
I wear brogue shoes so that I can cuff my jeans up over the top of those. Right? I mean,
Excellent.
That's the way I roll.
Uptown
Because
boy.
everyone loves seeing a pair of chukkas underneath some floods. That's great.
I love it.
Wow.
If I can get those jeans tighter, I will. Skinny jeans all the way. Skinny jeans for the win.
So that you don't have to do the little roll.
Oh, skinny jeans. I was watching a golden earring.
Oh, what was that all about? Yeah.
It just was.
It was just super tight jeans, and so you put it
So
up there?
yeah, there was golden earring doing Radar Love.
Yeah.
And man, those are some tight trousers.
This is the video.
That era was.
Radar Love.
I can't believe anyone had children in that era.
Most of them didn't.
Because man,
true?
them
No,
pants
I
were
have no
tight.
They were boomers, weren't they? I thought they were
Probably.
having kids all.
I didn't know that it was.
No, they were boomers. Their parents were the ones doing all the business.
Yeah.
And, they wore looser pants back in the 40s.
Yeah.
These are people who are trying to perform on stage with pants that they had clearly put on while they were wet and then waited outside in the sun while they shrunk.
Yeah. That's perfect.
And then they tried to dance around on stage. Mm-hmm. And we wonder why they all sang such high notes.
Yep. Hey.
That whatever
That was the
worked.
thing, man.
Yeah,
That was the
totally
thing. Tight on the top, loose on the bottom.
Although I gotta say, that dude had a really good voice.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them who had incredible voices. Absolutely true.
Yeah. I've been going back and watching
Irrespective of the pants.
listening to and watching lots of old music lately. And listening to some new bands that are doing throwback music that is amazing.
It's kind of you're revisiting some of that
Yeah.
old stuff that you never, at least me, never really gave a lot of thought
Right.
to. But now, if you actually listen to it more critically, it's like that's pretty good.
Yep.
That's something that I found while I was traveling because when I go, I usually get a rental car of some sort that's much newer than what I have.
Right.
And they generally have satellite radio
Oh,
still
okay.
enabled, right? So I can go and pick one of the 9,000 stations that are out there. And there's some really weird stuff out there, but it's amazing the stuff that you run into that, that you just listen to a regular Minneapolis, St. Paul radio station, you'll never hear.
Yep.
Well, I've done that just crawling down the YouTube musical rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, there's a suggested one. Oh, that's pretty good too.
Yep.
And then it just explodes into all this funkiness that you never heard of until then. And you're like, why didn't I know about this?
Incidentally, if you want to hear some good modern throwback type music, go to spotify.charactercrusade.com where I am curating a playlist
Oh,
of stuff
Perfect.
that is like that,
Nice.
which I think is pretty cool.
Very
In
cool.
particular, there's a band I've been listening to lately called Temples, which the stuff sounds like it could have come straight out of Woodstock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of
Cool.
amazing.
Very
So
cool.
I went the
love
opposite
to
of
see that.
Spotify when I did it. Somebody sent me a link last year, 2 years ago, to globe map that allows you to sort of turn the earth and find radio stations that are broadcasting over the internet from all over the globe.
That is cool.
And so you
Oh,
find
that is
one
cool.
like in Australia or in Liechtenstein or somewhere in Africa or whatever, and it's because everybody's got the ability to stream their content out to the web too, so you can hear something local from a place where you're likely to never go.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that is really
Well,
cool.
even our local station, I mean, they have people that move all over the country and still listen to it because
because you
they got
can.
attached to it and they like it and you still can.
Yeah.
So it's very cool. So you find that one thing that you really like and you can carry it with you
Everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
and discover new.
And discover new.
Yep. Way more options now than there used to be.
But there's no Drager Lager radio.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Yep. I'm sure Roger would be
Roger.
up for be a DJ.
Can you imagine?
Would he be
Roger
late night, you
curating?
think?
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah, call-in show.
Like Wolfman Jack.
Yeah.
What was that? Was
Roger, my girlfriend left me. Could you play me a song?
No. What was the TV show from the 90s?
Yeah.
With the guy who played Lumberg from Office Space. He was a radio DJ. What was that show?
Oh, I don't know.
Midnight Caller.
I don't think I've seen that.
Midnight Caller. Yeah, Swedish TV, man. That's what we had.
All right, guys, we need to do a podcast.
Yeah, we probably should.
What do you think?
Podcasting.
Okay, let me stop the recording.
How many people complained?
Oh,
That's us.
that is us. I heard me.
How did the complaining go after we did the drumming?
I was all right. Okay, are we ready?
Yep.
Now,
Oh, yeah.
welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of season 3, episode 1, Origins. In the second part of this podcast, we are going to be talking about gameplay and introduction of mods to support the things that we have learned from part 1. But before we do that, we are going to do the reveal of our theme for season 3. And you may be asking yourself, what does the theme have to do with the season of Unbound? How does it influence anything? Well, what it is we decided to use theme as kind of a high-level theme that you could use as kind of an overarching feature. Our interest here is in introducing kind of a high-level theme and seeing how everybody interprets it differently into their stories. Okay?
Kind of the umbrella that everything fits underneath.
Correct. This is a kind of, like Joe said, an umbrella concept that you'll consider as you're putting things together. Now, for some of you, this may play a major role in the way that you tackle your story. For others, it may play a less significant role. It's something that could play a role at the beginning and not at the end, vice versa. Or it could be just kind of an overarching theme throughout your entire playthrough. It's up to you how you interpret it. All right? But the concept is that by introducing a theme, we can help to inspire ideas as you're going forward. Okay?
That's what we're all about.
That's what we're all about. Ideas.
Ideas.
All right. So, the season 3 theme is as follows. The title is Hidden Agenda.
The title is Hidden Agenda.
Thank you, Joe. Yes.
It's like Sigourney Weaver talking to the computer in Galaxy Quest.
Computer?
I have one job.
Have any beryllium spheres on board? There are no beryllium spheres on board. We don't have any beryllium spheres on board.
I can hear what it said. I have one job on this ship.
Okay. Are we ready, fellas?
Like when you said self. When you ask yourself, self.
Self.
When you ask yourself, self, how do you run a podcast? Well,
Not with these clowns.
exactly. You do it solo.
Well, he only said between 6:01 and 6:05 there was no dicking around.
Yeah, I know. We got to be clearer on
I'm
that.
going to have to...
It's going to have to be running up the side.
Clearly, we'll have to redo our script. Okay, so hidden agenda. All that I do is in the service of my secret objective. Hidden agenda. All that I do is in the service of my secret agenda. All right? So there's this overarching theme of a hidden agenda that your character has that is going to influence the things that you do. You need to decide what that hidden agenda is. You need to decide if you're going to have any play rules or technical rules associated with it, and how those things will influence your story. Okay? So we're going to start with that. Okay. Now we need to talk about how do we take the things that we've learned about our characters at being stubborn and having this sort of subplot of birth with no baby, right? And figure out how does this stuff, how do we get somewhere through role play? How do we create some structure through role play and possibly through mods? Before we get into this discussion, I think it's important that we note that Character Crusade Unbound podcast has decided to fully embrace mods. We are not going to temper our discussions in the service of people who either can't or don't use mods. Mods are so widely available now that we have decided that we are going to assume that mods will be in use in some form or another. We don't want to limit our discussion, especially when there are literally hundreds of thousands of mods out there that are fantastic and could serve to support the discussion. Mm-hmm. So the discussion that you can expect to get in the second half of this episode is going to really revolve around gameplay rules and ideas that we could use to express these things, as well as mods that might support the things that we want to try to accomplish. Okay? All right.
We've never been mod-verse. We have just been trying to provide options for those who are mod agnostic or mod abstinent.
We have gone to great pains, I think, in the past to try to be agnostic. You're right. And I think we're going to worry less about that.
Yep.
If you're in a situation where you can't use mods or don't want to use mods, then you can take the stuff that we're saying and figure out how to interpret it using vanilla rules. Mm-hmm. But we've spent 3 years talking about vanilla rules.
Out with the vanilla rules.
Yeah, I just don't want to talk about vanilla anymore because there's hardly anybody in this community who isn't using mods in some way. All right, so I think
fine. I'll even
the pendulum has swung the other way, right? Where now the vast majority of people in this community are actively using mods, always using mods,
right?
And so we're going to focus on kind of that discussion.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning, we're not going to go out of our way to make it exclusively mod-centric.
No.
But we're not going to pull back from presenting them as we see.
Not when there are things that can dramatically alter your gameplay just by making some different choices.
I guess really what we're doing is putting the onus on the listener, to
the story crafter,
figure out the best way that works for you given your situation, instead of us trying to accommodate all manner of game style.
Right.
It's frankly too cumbersome. It's difficult to do.
Yep.
You know your system, you know your limits better than we do. So we're gonna let you run with that.
Mod away.
I agree. So with the exception of us kind of unveiling what the theme for the season is, the rest of this discussion is just really going to be us kind of riffing on ideas that we can think of that might help to support some of the stuff we talked about in the first half. There's not going to be anything in the rest of this discussion that you will be required to do. We're just generating ideas.
Right.
Okay? Except for Matt. He's got to do everything.
I have to do it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think one of the first things over the break that we discussed was this idea of how do we portray stubborn? What exactly is stubborn?
What does it mean?
What does that look like, or what are different ways that we could deal with it?
Yeah, we've touched a little bit on it, but I think it's a unique characteristic that can manifest itself in a multitude of ways. I think, Matt, you brought it up during the break.
Are we talking about belligerent stubbornness, or are we just talking about someone who just won't cave to somebody else's requests?
Yeah, what degree?
Right? And when I think we talked a little bit about it, because when people make choices, I don't think they're thinking about being stubborn. It's just sort of a personality trait where I don't want to do something because someone else has asked me to, or I'm not in the mood to do it, or whatever.
Right.
But I think being seen as stubborn by others is something that you could probably make a much faster determination, right?
Right.
Hey,
exactly.
Every time I ask you to go and fetch me some firewood, you say no. You draw your sword or whatever it might be, right? It's not just being stubborn. You're totally standing your ground, and that to me, I think, is different than just always saying no matter what the request is.
Right, being contrarian is not necessarily stubborn.
Very true.
Yeah. I think that's also an interesting point, is there's very few people who would ever say, I'm stubborn.
Yeah, no,
It's
that
always
is a really good point.
It is always something that someone else lays on a person.
Right.
Someone else will say, that person is stubborn. But very rarely do you see a person say, oh, I'm stubborn. right? So what that does is it puts you in the mindset of your character is kind of portraying this trait of being stubborn, but doesn't view themselves as being that way.
Right.
So I think as a player, one of the things that might be helpful to think about is what does stubbornness look like from the mindset of your character? Maybe they're thinking to themselves, well, I'm really smart. I've got lots of great ideas. I'm right. Why would I do anything else?
But coming to the realization that someone or everyone finds you to be stubborn is a bit of a stark realization. Right?
It can be,
oh
for
no,
sure.
I thought I was just smart and had lots of great ideas and was always right. Well, yeah, you're stubborn.
And by the way, possibly a narcissist.
Possibly. Yeah, just very maybe
Right?
possibly.
Yeah.
But those are the things you might not see those as traits because you always win. You always come out on top. You always come out as the victor in the battles and,
Right.
sing the loudest in the bars and, whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the thing to think about is, like you're saying, Matt, what is the flavor of stubborn that my character is?
Is it salty? Is it? I mean, because you can find all kind. I like the word flavor actually, because you can sort of describe the kind of stubbornness that you're bringing to the table. That way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the sort of experienced warrior who has decided that this is the way that battles are to be fought, and he won't fight them any other way?
With particular weapons, or only with particular people by his side,
Or is it the young, sort of plucky protagonist?
Which would come across as more endearing.
Where stubbornness would be
Possibly.
endearing, where, this individual crosses their arms and stamps their foot down and puts a scowl on their face. That's sort of cute stubborn,
right?
I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Sweet stubbornness.
Sweet stubborn, yeah. Which could grow into nasty pain in the ass
Salty
stubborn.
stubborn.
But,
right.
So I
Grizzled.
think this is sort of the spectrum upon which you want to consider these things. And whatever the secondary trait is that you came up with, you'll want to think of it in the same light as well. And then once you've done that, consider how the two might relate to one another. Now, the next question then is, given this discussion, how does this manifest itself inside the game? What kinds of choices might we be making inside the game that would be an expression of this kind of stubbornness?
Responses to
The
anybody.
most obvious would be dialogue response.
Yeah.
Taking the negative dialogue responses, or the dialogue responses that are most intransigent, like,
Yeah.
Right.
The ones that mean the least work, or the things that won't take you away from other stuff.
Correct. And that gets us into kind of thinking about this idea of, okay, if they're stubborn, what is it that they're stubborn about? Is it about control? They don't like being bossed around? Or is it something having to do with this hidden agenda, this hidden objective? Like, maybe in all other ways, they're an easy person to get along with, but if someone triggers them on whatever that hidden objective is, they turn stubborn, intransigent, unmovable, right? Ready to fight, right? And that is
You can't make me pick any more thistles.
Exactly. The hidden agenda is that I have decided that I am going to rid Skyrim of, whatever it is.
Whatever. Yeah. Nern root.
Nernroot, yeah, I will destroy all Nernroot.
I can never go into alchemy because I've got allergies
I've
or
picked
whatever.
29 Crimson Nernroot. I know where the 30th is, but I refuse.
Yeah. And why is that?
Are there only 30?
Because you're obsessed with the number 29?
Right,
Or,
exactly. Yep.
What is
Or are
it?
you just a dick?
Just a dick. There could be two.
Take the horse and ride it over the Nern route. No one else will have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the point being there's varying degrees and varying situations.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, what kind of stubborn are you? What are you stubborn about? When does it manifest itself? Is it an always-on thing, or is it a situational thing based on circumstances? You need to figure those things out.
What may be the root of it?
And what's the root of it? Yeah, you can't decide how it's going to manifest itself in game until you can answer those questions, because then that will start to tell you, when is my character going to be belligerent? What sort of quests is he going to refuse to do?
Yeah.
What people will he be absolutely unwilling to deal with? Stuff like that.
And I think a lot of these answers will, excuse me, come out, or possibly come out, or be more clear if you go through that circles of conflict exercise.
It will. It will. Imagine, for example, that you were to just take this trait of stubbornness and build it around the concept of the Civil War quest line. You could very easily go into the Civil War quest line and have your character join up with the Stormcloaks and have there be some kind of deep-seated background story or hidden agenda related to joining the Stormcloaks. But over the course of the story, the character starts to understand that the Stormcloaks' reason for doing what they were doing was suspect, that it was unsound, that it didn't make any sense. And the further they get along in their adventure, the more they come to understand that the logic is flawed, but that's where the stubbornness kicks in. And they say, no, my parents were killed by Imperials. I absolutely refuse to think beyond blah, 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 right? Now you've got a scenario where stubbornness plays a super key role.
Right.
In the primary...
Or I'm a Nord, or
story.
whatever
Exactly.
that background reason is.
Exactly. So you need to think these things through, mull it over for a day or two, jot your thoughts down, try some different things, and then figure out how it might tie into a quest line. That is only one example of how you could use it in just a real practical sense.
I think you could look to in that vein, you could look to the study up on the Forsworn. There's to me a very stubborn people.
Yeah, for sure.
And why are they that way? Well, they believe their lands have been taken, and in some respects they have been.
Yeah, and there's nothing that is going to sway them from that cause.
No.
That's why they're willing to die for it. That's the ultimate in stubbornness.
There doesn't just seem to be any social workers in Skyrim that are going to help them work through that in a non-combative way.
Right.
No, I don't think so.
What we're talking about here is
Let's
like
sit down and talk about it.
a really, really extreme degree of stubbornness, right? And to a certain point, when you get to this degree, it sort of seems...
It's almost fanaticism.
Yeah, it seems wrong to call it stubbornness. At this point, it's fanaticism, like you're saying. It's polarization.
Right.
It's a lot of what you see in America right now.
Yeah.
So, I guess you kind of think of it on that spectrum as well. If I'm talking about stubbornness, what sort of stubbornness is it? Is it kind of is it more of a, I guess, kind of an epic level
Right.
of zealotry, or is it something that's
more
more
subtle?
just a subtle character trait
Right.
where they might be stubborn about one or two things,
Right.
but it's not such a deep-seated thing that they can't function in certain areas.
So I wonder if, depending on the character that is crafted as part of this story, if you can vary some of your sense of stubbornness, whatever, scale 1 to 10, 1 to 100, because I would think that people who were younger characters in nature would probably be less belligerent stubborn and just a little bit more naive stubborn, right? Sort of that cute
More
stubborn,
idealistic.
or whatever you're, idealistic,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't know any better, right?
Right.
I think the minute
How does that manifest? Yeah, how's it grow?
right, and if you've been in war for decades, or you've been in hiding, or you've been trying to get your lands back for generations, that's a very different kind of I won't give up because you people have told me to. Right. So I think that it'll be interesting.
Societal.
How do we describe what stubbornness looks like in each of those 3 rings, or how they cross those rings, right? So,
That is a really good point. You could look at that trait through the perspective of those rings and then see what that looks like, see how it starts to flesh itself out. When you think about that, like from the personal perspective, I mean, a person just isn't stubborn for no reason. There's something that's made them that way.
Driving it, yep.
There's something that's driving it that way, right? And sometimes it has to do with this idea of some tragic event that flips a switch in their mind and says, this is what the world is, and this group or this person is now my enemy.
Yeah.
In some cases, it stems from something more subtle, where they become stubborn because they're convinced that admitting that they don't understand something is a sign of weakness,
Right.
and they're not willing.
I was
to
just
do
going
that.
to say insecurity.
Insecurity, yeah, that's exactly right.
That
Perfect
they're,
word.
compensating.
Right.
Right.
Or fear or
Right,
whatever
right.
else is driving that.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that can cause the
Yeah.
that can be the root cause of.
Exactly.
And that's something you can build into your character's background.
Now, what I think is really intriguing too is this: we're having this kind of rich, interesting discussion about this one trait of stubborn
Right.
and all
Wait till
the
we get
things
to
that
the
can
next
stem
ones.
from it.
Yeah.
Right.
And now take that and mix it with whatever else this secondary trait is that they're coming up with, and wow, you get a level of character complexity that's fascinating, I think.
Right.
And that's only with 2 traits. And
That's
think
only
about
with
what
2.
it's like when you
Yeah.
bump into somebody on the street and you know that there's 100. That
Good
interplay
point.
is really hard.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, limiting it, I think, to 2 is probably sensible because then you
From
can
a-
then
from
you
a
can live in
gameplay
it from a
mechan-
mechanic standpoint.
yeah.
But it starts to humanize, or whatever else your
Right.
race is in game, to craft that character on a much more deep level, because you do need to think
Right.
about what does it mean to be stubborn, or what does it really mean to be narcissistic.
Right, because it's going to
or whatever.
drive your in-game decisions, which
Yep.
we originally started out with here.
Yep.
And that's what, when you were mentioning earlier, I was taking notes, right?
I love that.
You
He
said
was
consider,
taking
notes.
consider the motivation behind the decisions, right? It isn't just about, okay, well, those guys are over there and I've got a bow and arrow, I'm going to take them out. What's the reason why I want to do that? Do I really have to? Is it because I just don't have anything better to do? But consider the motivation behind the decisions. It's
Right.
all about considering how those value pairs rate against each other in the moment of that decision. So
That is so good.
I'm done here.
Don't drop the mic though. Those are expensive.
Some people already didn't like the drumming, so
Those are great points.
Anyway, I didn't mean to derail. I was just
No,
No,
It just
that was
got my
awesome.
gears as all
It's very
spinning.
perfect. I mean, it's so easy to slip into that quote unquote stealth archer. All right,
Yeah.
so you're going to do that. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's easy.
Well, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
On the surface, the game play aspect,
Yeah.
that's the way to go.
Right.
However, if you're going to try to build a character of some sort of complexity, there needs to be more than just because as a player it's easier.
Right. Well, let's take an example and walk it through.
Let's do that.
Let's do that. So I'm going to throw out this idea, this idea of, let's say, like we talked about earlier, just a little bit earlier, this idea of somebody whose parents was killed by the Imperials, which drives them toward the Stormcloaks. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you could play out stubbornness in that scenario.
I like the sort of Peter Pan stance he's got right now.
Yeah, it helps. I've got some shoulder things going on, and it helps to kind of stretch.
It just seemed perfect in the talking about stubbornness, right? Hand
Yeah.
on hips.
I'll sit up a little.
I'm not moving.
Shoulders back.
Right.
So a person in that position, you could say, okay, is stubbornly supportive of the Stormcloaks, which drives you toward the Civil War. But what else could you say about it? You could say his father was someone that he idolized, and his father used a two-handed sword, and so he stubbornly refuses to use any other weapon but what his father used before. All right? So now you've taken that idea and focused it on a gameplay rule, which is I'm going to focus on this weapon type, and that's driven by this stubbornness, which is an artifact or a side effect, I guess, of the death of his parents at the hands of the Imperials. You can play that forward even more. There's certain Jarls he may refuse to help, right? He may be to the point where, I mean, if he goes into a city that's controlled by a Jarl who is an Imperial sympathizer, he will refuse to yield to the guards if they accuse him of a crime, right? Now suddenly you've got a set of game rules you're starting to craft around this idea of not just stubbornness, but why specifically.
Right.
What is the context around that emotion and that trait, that way of being? And it becomes much more interesting that way.
I think in that same vein, what kind of a reaction would your character give if you do commit a crime, you steal something? Because quite often, if you steal something from a shopkeeper, it won't be long before you encounter thugs that they've hired to come in and beat you up or, well, actually kill you. But
they start.
How do you react to that once you find out that they were sent from this shopkeeper? Do you
go take
exact even more? I mean, do you have this never-ending revenge thing going on, or do you say, okay, well played? I mean, how does that affect? And I think the answer to that lies in a lot of this background, cause of where your character's at and what their beliefs are, and will they refuse to yield? To that scenario.
Right, and each time we say it, I think about the movie The Princess Bride, right? And one guy who is so stubborn, his entire approach is that he's going to go kill the six-fingered man.
Oh yeah, Inigo Montoya.
Right, but it's in his mind, it's an absolutely responsible thing for him to spend his entire life dedicated to ending this one person's life, right? And it is relentlessly stubborn.
Yeah.
No matter what he's doing, no matter in pursuit of any other thing, everything else has to be set aside for
focus.
That. Right.
Yes.
Right.
So I hadn't
I think
really
that's a really good.
But I hadn't thought about that as being stubborn until we started tearing apart what the idea of stubborn is.
Right. And I think that is a perfect way to kind of launch us into this discussion of how traits can change, right? Because if you look ahead in the syllabus, episode 5 is called The Struggle. And the struggle is about the difficulties that a character has, the challenges that are presented to them, the things that go wrong, right? Nothing is more boring than a story about a hero who is always coming out on top, right? And when we get to episode 5 and 6 of season 3, that's when we talk about the struggle and the apex of the story. And so you might want to be thinking ahead about these ideas, and thinking to yourself, what is it if my character is this incredibly stubborn, or whatever that other trait is, or what the collection of traits are that your character has? What is it possibly that could happen in the context of this game that could be moving enough, important enough, that it could change my character forever? And it brings up this idea of, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been in the revenge business so long, I don't know what else to do, right? Right? Inigo Montoya gets his revenge, and then he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do next.
He has no other purpose in his life.
He became a completely different person, right? That was his apex moment. And so think about these traits as the kinds of things that are not permanent, but that at any point along the way, if something amazing happens to your character, think about the idea that you could use that as a turning point. Now, you could save, if it's something major, you could save it to the apex, but, maybe you hit level 6 and you have a huge battle with a dragon and a follower dies and this and that and the other thing. If the way that your story is coming together puts you in a situation where your character would reasonably be incredibly moved or feel responsible or something like that, that's when you need to sit back and you ask yourself, okay, was this event powerful enough that it has that kind of effect? And then what does that mean? Right? Does, because again, this is a value pair just like anything else. A character doesn't go from stubborn to not stubborn. A character goes from stubborn to something else.
Right.
So what is that something else?
And it doesn't have to be a failure in the sense of I didn't defeat something or I got beat by something else. it could be a change of realization. What I thought true isn't. It could be coming into that culmination of realization that what you always believed isn't.
What if you find in the course of your game that spending all the time at the College of Winterhold changes your perspective of an entire race of people?
Right.
Right?
Or you're that devout Nord following Ulfric, and you come to the realization that everything you've been fighting for is not true. Or enough of it doesn't match. It doesn't line up.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be this epic defeat. It could be a mental state of change.
Yep.
I would be sitting in a corner just rocking after I've realized everything I've been doing is
well,
wrong.
that's what drives interesting things too. Like, all it takes is a slight shift in perspective, and the same quest that you've done 10 times over can seem completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And so, ultimately, folks, that is what we're driving towards. We're trying to find ways to have new and interesting experiences in Skyrim. And it's not hard to do. There's a lot of people who say, well, this game is so old, I'm not going to play it anymore. I'm going to move on. That's cool. Do what you like. But the reason that there's so much life in this game is because it leaves things open enough to interpretation that the story inside of your head can be way more powerful than what's going on, on the surface in the game itself. Absolutely. And so that's really what this podcast is all about, is helping us surface those things. And this exercise of Unbound, the whole program here it's basically like attending a 6-part seminar on to kind of drive us towards this new experience, right? And so the reason that we decided to retool this entire podcast and have it completely focused on your experiences is because we want to use the mind share created by the things that you guys are doing to help spawn new ideas for people who hadn't considered how they could play this. Mm-hmm. So we thought, what better way to do that than just to really focus the entire podcast on you, your adventures, your stories. And that's why the homework is super important. And that's why
there's homework.
That's why there's homework, and that's why we're encouraging you to do it to the point where we're giving away prizes for it.
Booty.
We're giving away loot because we want to understand what you guys are doing. Okay, it's your ideas that are going to inspire new ideas for other people. Right. So that's what we're driving at. Now, so we've talked a lot about stubbornness, the different ways it could manifest itself. We've talked about maybe some in-game decisions or rules you could establish around this idea of stubbornness. Now, we've also got this concept we had talked about in the first half about this subplot that everybody's going to have, which is the birth with no baby. That's how we're referring to it in the shorthand. A birth with no baby.
Right.
What the heck?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, we can't tell you what it means. You're going to have to decide what it means.
And the level of importance that it has.
Correct.
That's up to you.
Because it's a subplot.
It is a subplot.
Yeah.
If at some point you reverse the subplot and the main plot through your gameplay just because it happens that way, so be it.
Yeah.
But, as of right now, that's this thing happening over here. It's weird. It's bizarre. It's worth keeping an eye on, but you also have this hidden agenda of yours.
Correct.
So
external factors and internal factors.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess it might be interesting to think about some different ways. I think as the hosts of this podcast, it's our job to try to present some ideas to get the ball rolling on something like this. Mm-hmm. And so I think it might be interesting to just kind of go around the table and think about this concept. Like, Joe, I'm curious. I mean, if you were presented with this concept to build into a playthrough, this idea that a woman goes into labor and the baby vanishes during the birthing process. What the hell? Like, I'm interested in what kind of a playthrough would that inspire for you, do you think?
At first, well, if you take it literally, it's really difficult. You could bring in some of these kind of oddball mods that allow you to actually become pregnant for your female characters and carry around a baby and that kind of thing, which, as you pointed out, Matt, may not be the most adventurous style of life to have happen.
It's certainly a very literal interpretation.
I'm really tired. I got to sit down for a few minutes.
You could go as literal as that, but I guess if it were me, I think it actually could tie in very nicely to the Dragonborn quest line.
Really?
How so?
You have the World Eater, Alduin. He's resurrecting all these dragons, giving birth to them, but there's no baby. They come as full adults, ready to roll.
Yeah.
So that's one interpretation I think I might consider running with the whole Alduin Dragonborn.
It could be ghostly dingoes.
That ain't your baby.
Oh my word. Talk about a cultural cross-reference.
That is I think that's a great idea. Which makes it more of a metaphor in a way.
Yes, I would probably choose it more as a metaphor, or almost like a prophecy even.
Wow, yeah.
You could build it into some kind of prophecy, because prophecies are, by their very nature, ambiguous.
Ambiguous?
Yes, that's what I said.
Ambiguous.
Ambiguous will work. That's cool.
That's right.
But I think that the metaphor
and open-ended, so that they are open to a lot of interpretation.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The idea of it as a prophecy, I think, is just freaking cool.
So that brings into question who prophesized it. Maybe that's your hidden agenda.
To figure out
who, where'd it come from, and why.
That is cool. I like that. All right.
Maybe it was a Thelmor agent.
All right.
We don't know.
No. Maybe it was a god.
Maybe it was a god.
Okay. I like this idea. Here's my take on it. What if we talked about this a little bit during the break? It is more, rather than being directly related to the character and the backstory or being a metaphor, we take it as something that is attached to the theme, where we have a character who is a researcher, and this idea of a birth without a baby is a legend or a story that this person hears about, and they come to investigate. And they come to Skyrim and quickly start to observe that Skyrim is mainly populated with children who are of adolescent age, and there are no infants and there are no toddlers, and starts to investigate whether or not there is something going on in Skyrim where babies are being stolen, or babies are vanishing due to magical means, or what the hell is happening. And the objective of the character is to go around Skyrim interviewing people who've lost children, or trying to understand why the children that are here are all of the same age, that kind of stuff, right? Now you've got a character who has lots of inspiration to wander Skyrim, interact with a lot of different people, unlock mysteries, use mods related to adopting multiple children. All kinds of different things could spawn from that.
Right.
I love that concept.
Vampire Questline comes to mind for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never done anything vampirish. Tell me about it.
Well, I mean,
why would that work?
it's just a kind of that whole vampire mystique. You know, are they coming and snatching all these babies?
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, actually, and the vampire menace. It's becoming, you know.
I just hadn't thought about that.
In more of a, I guess, a more cultural, or not necessarily cultural, but real world comparison. It's kind of like a view or a spin-off of Christianity, where you've got a birth with no father. Well, here you have a birth with no baby.
Yeah.
Nuts.
So you can pull in any god you want on that one.
Yeah.
Right.
I love this draw.
It's a strange, bizarro one.
This idea as a subplot is bananas. I think the potential for it is really interesting.
So I'm really curious to see how everyone incorporates their own personal main plot and where that correlation lies.
Yeah.
Now there may be no correlation, but I think there's a lot of potential.
So Matt, if you were starting a new playthrough and you were thinking about this concept of birth with a no baby, what sort of images does that conjure for you, and just in terms of the style and tone of a playthrough or whatever?
So I would, because each time when I feel like I've been captured on the outer reaches, you know, and I'm being dragged into somebody else's sort of cultural war, I always think it's interesting because I feel like my character is learning everything about Skyrim right from the get-go, right? It's sort of like, hey, I was on my way to somewhere else. What the heck is going on here? I'm about to be beheaded, you know. So something like, you start hearing about local lore, you start hearing about different religions. I mean, there's all kinds of things that all of a sudden become intriguing if you're busy paying attention. Now, I would say the first couple of playthroughs were really just about learning mechanics, about kind of getting through town.
Feel of the game.
That's sort of like driving around and you're only paying attention to where the GPS tells you to go.
Right.
Right. I think after a while you start realizing that the sort of in-game GPS that's go on this quest and go to this place and do that is different when you start setting that aside and saying, yeah, but this looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to go over here, right?
This
and I want
looks like a better route.
Right. And maybe it's not the right place to go, and maybe you're taking some very bad advice by, you know, climbing the 7,000 steps. But you don't really know what you're going to get until you get there. So you may be getting into a heap of trouble, but you've decided, my characters in these cases have sort of decided for themselves that they're going to accept that risk because they're just kind of the adventuring type, right? They just happen to have gotten caught up in somebody else's war or whatever.
Right.
And so to me, thinking about this sort of birth with no baby seems to be this kind of mystical, fantastical explanation, not necessarily something that would be real, maybe a little bit more metaphysical. So I don't know, maybe my characters are a little bit too cerebral in that regard after they've got clothes on. So but that's probably how I would approach it. I would think that there would be sort of this undertone of trying to find out, is this, you know, how is this so pervasive through everything in society?
Right.
Everybody's talking about this. You hear it, you know, especially when you've got a mod like Livelians and Taverns, you can't really make out what everybody's saying, you know. So if you assume that every place that you go into, someone's talking about this, have you heard about it? Oh, it's been in the news, you know, it's being shared from town to town. That would be kind of a fun way to build it in.
For sure. I think you could take a look at it and say, you know, is this a scenario where, you know, is it an isolated incident where a single baby is gone? And if you approach it that way, then it becomes a question of, okay, now we're telling a story about what is it about this baby in particular that sets it apart.
Right.
Whereas if you approach it from the perspective of all babies,
Right.
now is it
It's
a
a way
question
different.
of, are the babies being stolen, or is fertility being suppressed? Like there's probably 10 different ways that you could approach the concept that would create some really cool outcomes.
But we're also making an assumption that the birth no baby has to do with the people. How do we know that it isn't about why the dragons aren't giving birth to?
Could be. Yeah,
be.
and I think that ties into what Joe is saying too. Like about the idea that
Or
maybe it's a metaphor or a prophecy.
You know, the birth of the dragonborn. You know,
Right.
Or
Yeah.
you start out the game not being the Dragonborn, and then you're called to be the. I mean,
Right.
is that were you born and there was nothing there, and now there is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I say, I prefer to look at it more, from that abstract kind of point of view. But
I would agree.
you can certainly. I also like the more.
Why are there only adolescents?
Right. How
I mean,
come,
that
how
is
come
a
none of
creepy
the
fact.
how come
It
none of
really
the kids
is.
here are no one's under 10?
Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
harkens back to a lot of, sort of civilizations and groups of people who have just been systematically exterminated, and who's doing it and why.
Right.
You don't really want to hear that story, but you're curious to find out what happened, because you know that it has been devastating for a population of people. But
Right. In this game too, and the lore associated with it, presents us with a lot of opportunities to take a concept like that and really run with it in about 1,000 different directions.
Oh, yeah.
It could be Daedric involvement. You could tie it into Mirac and something like that. You could tie it into Hermaeus Mora. There's all of that quagmire.
Yeah, you could pull in lore from the other games, Oblivion,
And this, when we were playing ESO,
Morrowind
we had to go and change all those skeevers and everything back into
Right.
What?
How do we know that we aren't dealing with some sort of transmogrifier? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go, big
So-
cardboard box.
What if the discovery and exposure, of the Eye of Magnus has somehow suppressed fertility?
Right.
There's
Yeah,
there's
it's
about
been-
1,000 different ways.
It's only
to
been
do it.
sending out these waves from Sarthal for
Yeah.
thousands of years now.
Yeah, right. So I guess we definitely are trying to set the tone here that there are a lot of different ways to go. And our objective with the Origins episode in the first half is always going to be to try to set up the character and set you up for success. We're going to give you some ideas and let you create your own and meld them together into something that makes sense for you. We're going to give you a subplot and something that you can add to and some tools that you can roll randomly if you don't want to make your own choices to pull that together. And then the theme is the overarching idea that is designed to help you stitch everything together. The second half of the podcast, in this discussion, we have really just been trying to throw out ideas. Some of them are sort of high-level abstractions.
Right.
But we've tried to also boil them down into some really specific things you could do in-game. Now, the other thing that you can do is also, once you've made some of these decisions, think about the mods that you're using or the mods you might consider using and how those might help you reinforce some of these ideas that you have, right?
And if you're adventurous, perhaps some mods you might create for yourself.
Correct. It is really not that hard to do depending on what it is you're trying to make. So that is definitely always an option, and Bethesda has provided us with the tools to do so, and a lot of great people out there, modders and YouTubers, such as Dark Fox 127, would be happy to walk you through how that process works. Just watch one of his tutorial videos and
Watch
you'll
his
be off and running.
tutorial or go to his Discord, and there's some amazing people there that are really giving of their talents and time.
Yep. So I guess, ladies and gentlemen, this is the synopsis of where we're at. Unbound Season 3, Episode 1, Origins has come to a conclusion. We have picked out a character trait that everyone in this season will use, and that is the character trait of stubbornness. You will pick out a complementary or opposed character trait of your own choice. You can do that using the list that you will find in our blog post on the homepage of charactercrusade.com. You can go to that list, the character traits list, and you can pick something. Use that as a way to generate ideas if you want, or you can pick something on your own. We have also identified a subplot. The idea is that this is a minor plot point. The idea of a woman who goes into labor and discovers after, in the process of giving birth that the baby disappears or is gone, right? That is a subplot idea. And then we have the overarching theme of the hidden agenda, which is to say all that your character does is in the service of a hidden objective that no one else knows about. All right? So those are the common things that we understand about this season, and we are going to start building on those. So the next question, of course, before we wrap up is, what are the next steps?
What's the homework?
What is the homework? So if we take a look at that, you can go out to charactercrusade.com and click on Unbound Season 3, Episode 1, Origins, and you will see the homework assignment for next week. And I am just going to read this verbatim.
Next episode.
Yeah, next episode. I'm going to read this verbatim. This is basically the Origins vignette. So it consists of 2 parts, and when you go to unbound.charactercrusade.com and look at the homework form, you're going to see 2 options there, or 2 requirements. One is that you're going to tell some kind of a story, a short story that is a narrative about kind of what's going on. And then you're also going to give us some mechanical things, the kind of the what, how, and why of the choices that you were making. So you're going to write a vignette of not more than 1 page that is an accounting of your character's origin story. Consider creative ways you could record the story other than a bland narrative. Explore alternate perspectives, like, do you want to write it as journal entries? Do you want to write it as found documents? Is it interviews? Is it dialogue between characters? This is basically like a short essay on the origin of your character told in whatever creative way you care to tell it. The second part of the homework is to tell us about your status as a player. So we're interested in what you did, why you did it, and then how you did it. And when we're talking about that, what we're talking about is, how did you interpret this idea of stubbornness, and what did you pair with it? How did you interpret this concept of birth without the baby, and how did you incorporate that? What other plots are you thinking about? What quests are you thinking about? And then lastly, how did you take a look at our theme of the hidden agenda, and how did you incorporate that into your gameplay, and how is that going to be meaningful to you? Or have you? Maybe you haven't incorporated it yet and you're looking to the future. So this is your opportunity to tell us, kind of mechanically speaking, what your thought process was around what you did and why and how. All right? And so what we would like you to do is go ahead and do that homework in your own time. We would like you to try and get your homework submitted 24 hours before the next podcast. All right? That is fairly important.
And that is December 3rd, I believe.
Yeah, if you want to look that up, you can. Joe is right. It is on December 3rd, Monday, December 3rd, from 6 to 9 p.m. Okay? That is going to be episode 2 of season 3, which is called Hero. And we're going to be speaking for 20 to 30 minutes at the beginning of that episode about the beginnings of your character becoming the hero or anti-hero they will become throughout your story. And the rest of the episode is going to be dedicated to reading, examining, talking about your homework, and interacting with you guys in chat. Okay? So that's what that's all about. So get your homework in. Use the form to submit it. It's all easy to find. Everything is linked from the website. And try to do that within 24 hours of the next episode. And then we will incorporate all of that into the next one.
And if you find yourself getting stuck, do not be afraid to jump on the Character Crusade Discord channels and leverage your peers.
Yes.
It's a wonderful community, and there's really nothing more powerful than the groupthink.
Yep.
So if you're stuck, either throw it out there in public, or if there's someone you are comfortable with interacting, send them a direct message. Don't be afraid to bounce ideas off of one another.
Yep.
Boing.
There's a lot of that going on. If you aren't a member already, you can go to discord.charactercrusade.com and you'll find in there a text channel that's all about Unbound. I think we have yet to create probably a text channel for season 3.
Yeah, I don't think we have one.
We don't have that established yet.
But don't let that slow you down.
Don't let that slow you down. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to hold off. Let's hold off making that character text channel until we get to episode 2. And we'll coordinate setting that up with episode 2. By that point, we will have gotten your homework and you will have established who your character is and probably done some adventuring already. At that point, we'll create the channel, and after episode 2 is done, you can start posting your character profiles and all that good stuff. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Very
And
good.
I think it's safe to say, for those that it may pertain to, there are no character level limits.
No character level
Play
limits.
to your heart's content.
Yeah, play to your heart's content. As much as you want to play. That's a great point, Joe, because we did have character limits in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not doing that. I don't think that's part of the plan going forward.
No.
So you play as much or as little as you can, whatever time allows, and just follow the themes we've laid out. I think this has been a stellar start to season 3. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Right?
This is going to be good.
The discussion was really great,
Let's do it.
fellas. All right?
1,
All right.
2, 3, go!
Woo! All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We appreciate you all very much. We appreciate your support, and we will see you in the next episode.
See ya.
All right. So that's all good, right? Because we would be rolling the outro now at this point.
Right.
So was that a suitable sign-off?
Yeah.
All right.
We're not doing a heavy outro now, right?
Well, I think what we're going to do
Because we've
is...
reinforced Patreon and Discord and
Right.
Unbound and everything all through. So,
Right. We've been covering a lot of stuff, a lot of resources all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So they would get the standard outro, and then Joe, in production, you can roll the music however you want. I mean, we'll just see how it plays out, and you use your creative...
Yeah, we've got our mid-roll, we've got our outro, and I'll work that in and see how it goes. So sure.
Uh-huh. Hey guys, hey, thanks for everybody in the stream for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
I feel disconnected not being able to see the chat.
Yeah, this has been just like tons of fun. The chat has been kind of on fire all night. It's been really great.
Cool.
There's a lot of creativity out there. We had
sure.
pretty good group of people, and you guys are always really engaged and obviously excited to be back at this. So we hope that you guys like this new organization. We would certainly invite you to leave comments on Discord or give us any feedback if you've got any. We are trying to create something here that inspires creativity but gives us enough structure and consistency that we can do it over and over and kind of know what the roadmap is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're not struggling all the time. So any feedback you might have would be definitely helpful.
Sure.
Right? All right. Well, see y'all. Good night. Everybody's saying good night.
Thanks
Good
for
night.
coming.
Say good night, fellas.
Good night,
Good night,
fellas.
Good night, fellas.